Hello. Hi, guys. I'm so sorry. I found Big Amish. Hi, Big
Hello.
Amish. How are you?
Hi, Wendy. Hello, everyone. Thank you again for having me.
It's a pleasure. It's me that got my times wrong. I'm so sorry. Uh, I actually thought it was going to start a bit earlier. So, yeah. So here we are, but we made it. Sorry we're
Yes.
late. So, hi, Alicia, and let's see who else is in the chat. Sorry, guys. I said hi to all of you just quickly. Timu, Linda, Jethro. Hi, Jethro. Aerith. Sorry if I say your name wrong because I'm just looking at your handle.
Yes.
Okay.
Hello,
Am I
everyone.
saying that right? Aerith. Okay. Hi, everyone. How are you? So, yeah, we were supposed to have Scully with us, but I think he also did his own live.
Oh, so that,
And yeah, I think he did do a live. We're going to look at this video from, let me tell you the channel name quickly. This guy's got a podcast. Let me see. It's called The Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard. Seems like a really nice guy. So anyway, I'm going to tag him in this because he had Christopher Whitcomb on. So what I'm going to do, so we don't go too deep into it, I'll play a little bit of the intro, but there's a timestamp. So it shows that he actually starts talking about broken plea roughly at the 40-minute mark. Okay, so you guys okay with me adding it? Oh gosh, what did I do there? Sorry. All right. Yeah, so I'll just play a little bit of the intro and then we'll go to where he talks about broken plea because Big Amish, like I said to you, he's mostly talking about his career in the beginning.
right.
And we can watch a little bit of, I'm just going to look at the timestamp on it quickly before I go there. Okay, so let me do this.
You're in
Okay, I've got
control.
him. All right. Okay. If you want me to stop at any point that you find interesting, just tell me.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Let's play.
Moved away after high school, and I never really went back.
Lake Winnipesaukee my only, and Wares Beach is my only.
Straight north of there, a town called Franconia. It's a ski area called Cannon Mountain.
Okay.
My dad ran the ski area. Small town, like 200 people.
Oh, really?
But a guy that worked for my dad, like no easy stories in my life. Guy that worked for my dad shot and killed the number 2 guy in the FBI 2 weeks before he was going to testify that Lee Harvey Oswald didn't kill Kennedy alone.
Whoa.
And and then a guy I grew up with, my uncle Harold, a guy named Harold Janine, who was kind of like the first Elon Musk.
Okay.
And he tried to overthrow the Chilean government. He gave the CIA, I don't know, a couple $1 million to overthrow the Chilean government.
Okay.
They killed Salvador Allende, the president. So they put a hit on him. They blew up his offices in New York, and he went to his estate in New Hampshire.
Oh my God.
And so I grew up with him in the CIA.
Wow.
Okay, wow.
And then I ended up in both. I ended up as an FBI agent and working with the CIA.
Before we get off of New Hampshire, have you ever been to Bike Week?
Okay, I don't want to play that. I'm going to play a little bit. I just bookmarked it to, I think it's at, he starts talking a little bit about Ruby.
This is great. I did not know he was going to get into this or even knew
Both
about
in the
that
FBI.
connection.
Yeah.
And it was an application.
Sorry, Big Amish.
I said, I didn't even know there was any I didn't know about this at all. This is shocking to know. And it's not a coincidence. And for some people,
it's what you told me, well, about 2 months back, right?
The JFK stuff. I mean, that's
Mhm.
and New
I can leave
Hampshire.
it at that. I can leave it, let it play there for a while. No problem.
Or,
Let's see what he said.
we could skip. I just want to let people know that New Hampshire and Vermont, the areas north of New York, are used for exactly what he's saying. They're used for organized crime really, in these small towns, and that's how they bypass a lot of eyes on them.
What towns do they use?
In Vermont or New Hampshire, like he's pointing out, and I don't know what town he's mentioning, but organized crime sometimes tends to go outskirts, not just literally outskirts of New York City, for example, but into these small rural areas, and they use, for example, ski operations, which he talked about his father, and you use that as a front, as a CIA front, or for organized crime to mingle with intelligence, because it's in a very, think about it, a ski resort. It's you're talking about specific times of the year. People are going out to have fun, families. So no one's really thinking that organized crime or the intelligence community is operating there. But with ski operations, you're talking about a lot of money and certain type of people being involved. It's not a cheap activity, right? It requires, So I'm just saying.
You're talking about small towns. Would this also involve big events like Super Bowl?
Yeah, much different.
Much different. Can you just explain a little bit for me, if you want?
Yeah, well, with the Super Bowl event, I mean, with a Super Bowl, you're gathering a lot of individuals in one place. That would be an intelligence operation for different reasons, right? And you're going to get a lot of assistance from different intelligence agencies, and also federal assets. So the scope of a Super Bowl in magnitude is like 1,000 times what we're talking about, a small operation like a ski resort, which is like a rifle shot approach, because there who's coming and going. Basically,
they have more control over it.
They have more control over it, and it's a place where you're going to be meeting. Whether it's like they could say so and so or this family's coming in during this week and the following week, or however it's set up. Now, those individuals tend to have information that they relay to intelligence in a very casual way, but it's very intimate because there's not many people around, even though it's a ski operation. So you have different ways of gathering information or exchanging information or setting things in motion that's already approved of a federal operation. So ski resorts is probably a great way of doing it. And if you think about it, we're talking about New Hampshire here, but Lake Tahoe, for example, in the West Coast, and how close or how that was used, possibly. Again, this is just my opinion. So Lake Tahoe being a small town, but full of gambling and great weather, and you're able to ski, so you could be tanning in LA and basically going to Lake Tahoe in pretty short order. So there's just different ways the intelligence operations take shape and are used. And what he's talking about, I didn't even know he was going to say this. This is great. I would love to watch it. I don't have to do it now, and I'm a big rock.
No. It's quite a long interview that he did with him.
Yeah.
So,
but that's very interesting. He brings up JFK. There's no coincidences in my book. I mean, the person who, I forgot how he said it, he was involved with Oswald. So, and he's mentioning
go back and play it, or do you want to go back and see what he did there? Do you want to replay that piece?
Sure. Let's.
No problem. Let's just see what he says again.
Old Salvador Allende, the president, so they put a hit on him. They blew up his offices in New York, and he went to his estate in New Hampshire.
Oh my God!
And so I grew up with him in the CIA.
Wow.
Okay, wow.
And then I ended up in both. I ended up as an FBI agent and working with the CIA.
Before we get off of New Hampshire, have you ever been to Bike Week?
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm a Harley guy. You can't tell by my appearance, probably.
Right.
But I have been for a very long time. Are we on now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Sorry. I had no idea.
It's disarming.
Yeah, that's what we do. We kind of sneak
you
in.
snuck it on me. I didn't even realize that we were on.
Feel free to use these interrogation techniques in,
Well, I
any
taught
future
interrogation.
constellation.
That's it. Look,
Exactly.
I did teach interrogation at the FBI Academy for a couple of years.
Okay, that's in Quantico.
It's in Quantico.
Yeah.
I had a very unusual.
Like we.
Old Salvador Allende, the president. So they put a hit on him. They blew up his offices in New York, and he went to his estate in New Hampshire.
Oh my God.
And so I grew up with him in the CIA.
Wow.
Okay, wow.
And then I ended up in both. I ended up as an FBI agent and working with the CIA.
Before we get off of New Hampshire, have you ever been to Bike Week?
Yeah, I'm a
Where's
Harley
Beach?
guy. You can't tell by my appearance, probably.
Right.
But I have been for a very long time. Are we on now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, wow. Sorry. I had no idea.
It's disarming.
Yeah,
isn't
that's
it?
what we do. We kind of sneak
you
in.
snuck it on me. I didn't even realize that we were on.
Feel free to use these interrogation techniques in,
Well, I
any
taught
future
interrogation.
I don't know what I did there. Sorry, guys. Doesn't let me go back. All right, let's go here. So he's going to talk about Ruby Ridge.
Oh, yeah.
I missed it by a few seconds there. But he's going to talk about Ruby Ridge. So let me go to that timestamp. Big Amish, it's pretty loud. Guys, can you hear everything? If you want me to adjust the volume, then I can also just put a little bit quieter. Very loud. Okay. Just give me a heads up if you want me to stop, Big Amish.
Ended up doing that. Now that brings us to Ruby Ridge. In 1992, I was new on this team, relatively new. So the way it was in those days is you're always ready to go. And we were mobile. So you go home every day, like a regular job. You've got a car, or a truck, or whatever. I had a Dodge Power Wagon with a toolbox in the back full of hand grenades and high explosives and machine guns, right?
Sure, yeah.
So anyways, you go in, you go to work, and you train doing all of these different things. And I was gone, I think in the early days, I was gone maybe 250 days a year, something like that. You're always out. We had an aircraft training facility at Davis Month in Air Force Base in Arizona. So you go out there every 3 months and you do a workup on shooting on planes or assaulting planes. Yeah. Then you do mountain training.
So you're either training or you're deployed on some kind of...
That's exactly right. But you're gone all the time. Many years, it was 300 days or more a year. You're on the road. And many times your spouse doesn't know where you are. Yeah. Have any idea. So that's the kind of the construct. So I remember it was a Friday.
Oh, wow. Timu, Big Amish, hold on. Let me go back to StreamYard.
Yeah, no worries.
Let's show this. Wow, look at that. Timu, oh, thank you so much. I put the chat on screen. Big Amish, can you see?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yes.
Thank you, Timu. Thank you so much.
Hi, Timu.
Yeah.
Jeff
Oh, wow.
everyone.
Thank you for that. Thank you. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Just one correction. I said you could go from LA to Tahoe. Tahoe's in Northern California next to the Nevada border. So it's a long drive from LA. But from the base of Lake Tahoe, you could have warm weather and basically sunbathe and be up into ski slopes at the same time while having the ability to gamble. So sorry, just digress on a side issue. But this is very interesting what he's bringing up, and Ruby Ridge specifically.
Yeah. That was $20 we got from Timu. So thank you, Timu. Did you see that, Big Amish?
Yeah, wow, that's very, very wow, Timu.
Very generous of you. Thank you, Timu.
Yeah. Very kind.
Thank you so much. Very kind of you. Okay, let me play because he's going to talk about Ruby Ridge here. Okay.
Afternoon. You go home on the weekends, most weekends. Mm-hmm. And I was getting ready to go, and the word kind of whispers around, hey, we got a gig. Mm-hmm. The beepers hadn't gone off, but I was there at the building, at our compound. And they said, we've got a thing in Idaho. So you go, okay. The only reason you need to know geography is because you got to take a desert bag. You got to take you got to take a Caribbean island bag, dive gear, or whatever else. So you take a kind of a cold weather mountain bag because we knew it was in northern Idaho. They said it's mountainous, it's cold, bring this bag.
Yeah.
So you put your gear together, you drive it up to military planes. We loaded everything, helicopters, everything. We loaded on a plane and we might have flown to Spokane, Washington.
Okay, yeah.
And this place was called Bonners Ferry, Idaho. It was way, way north. And so you work all day Friday, you fly all night, you get there in the morning, and we drove out to this potato field. And we had a briefing somewhere, but it was a National Guard armory. And you go in and they say there was a shootout with some U.S. Marshals up on a mountain. We don't know anything.
Good luck.
Good luck. Good luck. Dax, I'm not kidding you, man.
We trust you'll figure it out.
We'll trust you'll figure it out, right? I mean, that's literally now people would go, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What about this? And I said, we didn't know anything about this guy. Somebody thought he was a former special forces guy that was living as a separatist on a mountaintop. That's literally all you had. That's literally all we had.
Yeah.
So now you drive out to the potato fields. You got to set up all the tents. You got to fly in the helicopters. You got to bring in all the gear. And it's 50 guys. Put our gear together, and then headquarters starts making all these decisions. We're not privy to them. They say, go, stop, go, stop, go, stop. It's pouring rain. It's about 35 degrees.
Yeah. There's a lot of footage of all this. And it looks hostile. The environment. It doesn't look like a place.
The nature of the job is hostile, right?
Exactly.
But at the time, we're making this stuff up, by the way. The world was a very, very different place back then. It's like, we're the good guys. You're the bad guys. Hold my beer. It's over. That's the mentality.
It was a cowboy approach.
It was a cowboy approach because nobody knew anything different.
Right, exactly.
Now we'll get to what happened as a result that makes the world a better place. Now, at that time, this is not a defense. This is just reality of what it's like.
It's not how it should have been. It's how it was.
That's exactly right. Thank you.
Yeah.
All you know is that this dude was shooting at marshals.
And killed one of them.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a bad gunfight.
Is it too loud, anybody? Is the volume too loud?
I think it's fine, but again,
I'm just checking.
I like the loud, but
it's pretty interesting that he's going to talk about it because I know a lot of people brought this up online. So, but the whole interview is very interesting. So, okay, you just tell me if you want me to stop. Anybody, if you want to say. Or you want to stop? Just let me know.
Oh, before Timo grew up in the area?
Or
lived in the area?
Yes,
Wow.
He said he's pretty close to the area, right, Timo?
Where I grew up? Yeah, she says that's where she grew up. Or he, I'm sorry. So that's, wow.
Very 30 miles from Bonners Ferry in Libby, Montana. Okay, somebody tell me where that is. I'll have to go look on the map.
So Montana is on the western side, eastern side of Idaho, I guess. So if you think of Idaho, which we kind of have a grasp of, so it'd be to the east of Idaho, in north and east, I guess. Am I right, Timu?
Yes, there it is. Where is Ruby Ridge, guys? Yeah, okay. All right.
Yeah, Ruby Ridge is in Montana.
I'll have a look while he's talking here.
Yeah.
If somebody gets hurt.
Yeah.
And that's all we knew.
Yeah.
So they say gear up. So you put on a ghillie suit, which is this giant rag that makes you look like a stump in a swamp,
Oh.
And we had a guide that walked us up this mountain. So we walked up. I don't remember how long it was. Maybe like 2 hours, 2 or 3 hours or something
That's
like that.
already too much.
It's called Ruby Ridge because it was literally a mountain ridge. And now, so you walk up through this cloud, 35 degrees, carrying whatever the load. And they told us not to, the bosses told us not to bring anything more than we needed for a couple hours because we were going to go up and surveil the place and report down. They were going to make the decisions, and then the rest of the guys were going to come up and do whatever, right?
Right.
So we provided a perimeter, and nobody knew what we'd find when we get there. So I grew up in the mountains, northern New Hampshire, and it was all very comfortable. So we finally get to the top, and this guy goes, okay, you're on your own from here. And he left, and we just kind of snuck like your kid sneaking up through the woods, like, well, what's over there?
Yeah. Is that part fun? Is there any part
Yeah, it
that's
was fun.
Yeah.
It was all fun.
I feel like I would dig that.
You would dig that very much so, yeah.
Like, talk about novelty.
Yeah.
You're doing something you've never done before and other people haven't done before, and we don't know what's on the other side. Like, this is high arousal.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Everybody likes something different.
Yeah.
We like that.
Yes.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So people would say, thank you for your service over time. And I'd always feel terrible because I'd say, I enjoyed every second of it.
Yeah. And that's who I want doing that job. Yes.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, you have to
exactly.
have a respect for the thing. And I'll say this, the FBI hostage rescue team is dramatically different from other elements because the Army and Navy entities, as brilliant as they are, and as much respect as I have for them, they have a different mission.
Mm-hmm.
You don't go into combat and say, I'm going to shoot that guy, not his twin brother standing 6 inches away.
Right.
Totally different circumstances, different rules of engagement.
Yeah, collateral damage is expected and accepted.
It's bad.
Yeah.
That's why we're talking about this
Exactly.
35 years later.
Yeah.
Because of that collateral damage.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So then humanity kicks in and you go, okay, we've got to do this job. And you're literally on a mountaintop. And I remember there were 3 teams. There's two guys, and my component had 3. There were 3 guys from my sniper team. Sniper teams were typically 7 members. And it was basically half the team had a sniper component.
Mm-hmm.
So 7 guys went up because others were busy doing other things that came in. So my team was 3, and we were highest above the cabin and furthest away.
Mm-hmm.
So I was looking down so I could see the cabin. There was a roof sloping off the back, and many people know what the photographs look like after all this time. And I couldn't see the porch itself. The teams down below could. They were more or less level. We were up above it. You find a hide. You try to find a place that they can't see you.
Yeah.
And mine was in this rocky outcropping. And then the next thing you deal with is the weather. So your scopes fog up.
Yeah.
You start to cool down from 2.5 hours of exertion.
You're doing a lot of calculations too, right? You're in like high but barometric pressure. The round's going to fall.
Everything. Shooting angle of incidence makes a big difference. A flat shot is one thing. Up short. This
downhill.
You're doing all of the math.
Yeah.
You're doing all the stuff that's going on, and you've been toting a load up this mountain, and then all of a sudden you've got to start doing all of that. And I was just doing all of that, and I just got eyes on, and it happened. It happened that quickly. Very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And what basically happened, Randy Weaver and Kevin Harris lived in this cabin with his wife, Vicky, and with a daughter.
Silly me, I just had a look at exactly where Ruby Ridge is. So I see where it is now.
Okay.
Okay, finally.
So you got
Sarah, a son, Sammy, and a baby. And during the initial firefight with the marshals, Sammy was shot and killed. But nobody knew that. The marshals didn't know that. They didn't tell us that.
Yeah.
We didn't know what had happened. And we didn't know where these guys were.
But by the way, that's very impertinent information if someone's loved one just died. But
Huge.
your level
Huge.
of commitment as that person just quadrupled.
100%.
Yeah, this dude's willing to die right now.
Just
No
imagine
problem.
from their standpoint, and we have to. We're talking
Yeah.
about this. I'm not an ideologue. I'm not tied to one another. But just imagine you are in this cabin. You hear a noise. You run outside, and somebody shoots your 14-year-old son.
Yeah.
And it goes
All
downhill
bets
from
are
there.
off.
Yeah.
All bets are off,
Yeah.
right? I don't care who you are.
Yeah.
All bets are off.
Exactly.
We did not know that. This is all just my opinion. I'm not speaking for the guys I worked with. They can tell their own stories. Mine was, I'm here to do a job.
Mm-hmm.
These guys got in a shootout with the marshals. Bill Deegan was killed. We went to get him. Right? I mean, to bring justice. Our job, my job, was to contain the cabin so they didn't run away and to provide intel back to the office.
Right.
Now, here's where Ruby Ridge becomes an issue. Ruby Ridge becomes an issue because as everyone talks about this case, they talk about one thing. The FBI rules of engagement. When you graduate the academy, they give you a gun. In my case, they give me several.
Yeah.
And they give you a gun and they say, deadly force, this is their policy, deadly force shall not be used unless basically, except in the threat of death or serious bodily harm to you or an innocent party. That's basically it.
Yeah.
So it's not when you can use deadly force, it's that you can't use deadly force unless this very small thing, somebody's going to kill you or hurt you really badly, right?
Yeah.
Ruby Ridge was different. And I don't know why. I don't know how it happened. I know what my attitude was. When we went up there, we had 2 supervisors at the time. I'm not going to say the name of ours, even though it's been published. But they read different rules of engagement. And they said, basically, if somebody comes out of the cabin and you feel threatened, you can shoot them.
Oh,
Well,
wow.
okay, so I don't agree with it, but it doesn't take a lot for me to understand. They already killed one marshal.
Yes.
The rules of engagement have already been met. They are intending on killing us. They proved that.
Well, I can only say what I believe. And I've been saying this for 34 years. I've put it in writing. I've talked to other people about it. And I'll say this. I believed in that shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I believed when I raised my right hand on the stage in Quantico, Virginia.
Do you guys know about this case? I mean, I heard about it many, many years ago.
Yeah, no, he, the son of Randy Weaver was killed. I guess he was 14. So did he admit to earlier on in the interview? He said he had eyes on him. And as a
it's
sniper,
like he's not really admitting to what went on. Correct, Lucy?
he's avoiding it.
I never understood that story because what I know about it, I don't know off the top of my head. This is a pretty old story. Is that this what was his name, Weaver Randall, that he's talking about, right? It's like a standoff with federal agents, right? And
well, that's what the narrative is, right? They want you to think, oh, they're using force, or at least equivalent force back, because they're shooting at the well, what are the marshals doing there? Is it similar to what happened in Waco, which we know, it's all the same kind of.
He doesn't talk about that. He doesn't talk about Waco in this interview.
Right.
He's just talking about Ruby Ridge. But
it's
do you think there was something else going on with that story? Because just on the face of it, doesn't seem above board.
Yeah, no, it doesn't. But he says the protocol of using force only when you're threatened with force or deadly bodily harm or someone else is. He says, as a sniper, you get eyes on somebody. He says that's what the standard is, but it wasn't the standard that day. So then it's shoot to kill. And don't forget what his background is. He's FBI and CIA. So CIA technically doesn't operate within the United States, but just like a joint task force member, where you have a local law enforcement officer who's also an FBI agent as well, he's in a dual role. The dual role, if the protocols aren't being followed by the FBI, doesn't mean the CIA is not involved in telling him take the shot, because he says the FBI protocols or standard wasn't applied, and he doesn't know why. He knows, well, he might not know why, but he certainly follows the orders. And so if he gets the order from CIA to take him out, well, guess what? He's no longer operating as an FBI agent, even though he is. He's now acting on behalf of the CIA. But we'll never know that.
He's not going to say that, right?
Lucy's saying, okay, he became CIA 9/11. Okay. Okay.
Oh,
well, there you go. So
now.
he wasn't a CIA operative at that time. Or was he?
Lucy, I want my old life back.
No, when did that happen? I'm trying to remember. Randy Weaver happened after 9/11. No, before, right? It would be before. Randy, am I right, Lucy?
Yeah.
It is. So 9/11 is 2001. The shootout with Ruby Ridge happened in the mid-90s, later 90s.
I think it was 1992, right? I mean, look, I don't live in America, but I did hear about the case, and it just doesn't seem right.
Yeah.
Even from the comments, shooting the dog. Oh, wow. Wow. You can see Lucy's getting upset. She's starting to spell wrong.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
She's getting excited. You can see when Lucy starts getting excited in the comments. Comments are firing. Go for it, Lucy. It's fine. Yeah. So he's.
But just because someone formally gets involved in the CIA doesn't mean he wasn't a CIA asset. That's all. You could have your dates of when you went into the CIA formally. That's one thing, but could have also been intelligence used by intelligence at CIA earlier as an FBI agent, which they typically do. They just provide a special status for them at different times, just like a joint task force officer. But go
Timu
ahead.
is also saying here she lived in Ruby Ridge when it happened. It was senseless. Well, yeah, you are bringing up a very good point, which is why the rest of the interview, wow, I mean, okay.
Yeah, no, and I remember when that was happening. I've not looked into more than just reading about it and knowing that the son was killed. Once that you hear of a teenager killed and a dog, you know,
Wow. Yeah,
why kill it?
that seems wild. I actually want to. I'm just looking at the comments because I'm seeing that a lot of people know a lot more about this case than what I do.
It suggests an assassination rather than some sort of a standoff with marshals, right? So you're just killing all the witnesses and everyone involved, even a dog that sends a message to someone else. I don't know who.
Well, yeah, I mean, if they were after this guy Randy Weaver, right? And from what I understand, it was 11 days, was it? Somebody tell me. Yeah, I don't know how Lucy knows everything either. She's. We need to bring Lucy up on so she can also talk.
Yeah, and Chillin's making a good point and saying they
Oh,
so
hi,
what
Jen.
they shot
Yeah,
the
Jen,
dog
yeah,
first.
I know about that. I heard that the wife was killed while she was holding her baby. So how many people were killed in this?
I forgot how many marshals were killed. Is it one or two marshals? I know wounded. One may have died. So then you have Randy Weaver and his son and the dog. So, but the point Chillin was making, and that's correct. They shot the dog in order to make the son, the young boy, shoot back. So that gave them the rationale to allegedly, right? So you have a pretext. Shoot the dog, because if you shoot a kid's dog, guess what's going to happen? They're going to fire back.
Of course.
And that's what happened. And then they shoot the son because they know now Randy Weaver is going to go all out. He knows that now the use of force under any theory is acceptable, right? Based on the protocol of when to use deadly force. So that's how you know how the pretext was used of shooting the dog first, because shooting a dog under the law is considered property, right? Even though we know that's BS, that's like killing your own family member. But shooting a dog under the law is considered property. So if you kill your property, right, or livestock, for example, does that give you a right to shoot and use deadly force at a law enforcement officer under the law? No. However, this is a 14-year-old boy, and maybe he thinks he's being shot at, right? And that's the reasonable conclusion anyway. You're going to fire back because you don't even know who's there. Think about it. These people are in camouflage, whatever they're wearing. They're not in regular martial outfits and have they're not announcing themselves. They're in hiding. They're basically in the trees. So think about how scary and the thought process of a 14-year-old boy when someone shoots your dog who's next to you. Of course you're going to fire back. You don't know what the hell's going on. So
oh, I'm just thinking, yeah. ED. Okay, remind me next time. I pronounced your name wrong. I'm so sorry. I always do that to people's names. I'm so sorry. Yeah, Chidin, you're right. Dogs are family. So you shoot somebody's pets, you're going to have chaos.
But yeah, just if we put ourselves in that position, right? Someone shooting your dog, that's one. But if your dog is next to you and it gets shot, that's even worse. It's not like he's stuck. You know, so you hear a shot, you don't know if it's intended for you, but hits your dog, that's going to cause a certain response anyway. But you're being attacked, you're being fired upon. Deadly force is being used upon you. So Mr. Whitcomb and his group there, in my opinion, are all fair game to be shot, because no one knows there's law enforcement. It's not like they knew law enforcement was there. You heard Whitcomb say that they were basically dropped in, or however they went in, and no one knew. No one knew about that. And they were just surveilling Weaver, his son, and anyone else who was there. And I don't know if there was anyone else there. I don't know if that is a possibility. I don't know if that ever came out, or I'm just speculating. Was there anyone else there? I don't know. In the chat, someone could chime in. Probably not, but I just raised that question.
If anybody could tell me why they went in the first place, was it drug charges?
I think he was considered a white supremacist. Is that what it was? And they were being followed. It's kind of.
Like, I don't know if he was an informant, or they believed he was an informant.
It could have been an informant, but for what? But for what subject matter? You're bringing up a point. What was the subject matter?
Sorry, I'm just asking a question.
Point.
Yeah,
that's a very good point.
If anybody knows?
Yeah, that's a very good point. What was it? So it's going to be. It has to be either a white supremacist movement. It's going to.
Did they shoot Randy Weaver, or just the wife and the son and the dog?
They that's right. They killed that's right, the wife. I don't know if the baby survived. I don't know if the baby survived. That I don't know. I have to but yeah, they shot the wife, so it was clearly an assassination of the whole family attempt.
Wow.
I don't know if the baby lived.
Okay. Wow.
Does anyone know if the baby survived? And I guess the baby now would be in their 30s.
I'll have a look if I see anything. Okay, let me play here.
Yeah.
You still want to get to our main part.
And said, I swear to defend the Constitution. I didn't think to myself, well, except for this. I believed in that. And I figure if I'm going to die for something, and quite a number of people that I worked with on that team have been killed.
Yeah.
This is not a fucking joke.
Yeah.
And I went up there and I said, if I am going to die in defense of something or my peers are, my friends, these people I really truly care about, it's got to be for something. And it can't be for a politician.
Yeah.
And it can't be for anger or rage or whatever. These people that they hire for these jobs, it has to be for something that we all agree upon as Americans.
Yes.
This is right. This is wrong.
Totally.
Now, do things get haywire? Yes. Did this? Yes. So we talk about how it gets to that point.
Yeah.
And then we can say, I still hate you, but I understand your point in why I hate you.
Right.
Meaning me specifically. Because I can tell you, it's been 35 years of hatred.
Do you want to master AI tools like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, and Midjourney? We'll show you where to start. Click.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert.
Save you hundreds on car insurance. Not checking.
First year in.
I mean, literally, I remember getting the Washington Post, and there's a picture of the 7 of us standing there at a Senate hearing, the Hart Senate office building. I used to work across the street.
Yeah.
I mean, I could see my office from the front door where I used to write speeches, and now I'm in there.
You're like, what's happened?
It's wild, the whole thing.
Yeah.
But anyways, it was very little information. The rules of engagement became a thing over time. Going back to your original point, I still to this day have the handwritten rules of engagement on a notepad, a copy of that. So I've read it over time, and I still to this day do not remember hearing him read those words to me. I have them. I know it happened. I don't remember that because my mind, the FBI has superseding rules of engagement, and never occurred that there was anything else. So I know it happened.
Just a quick check I did. Yes, apparently the girl, I did have a look at this incident, and they said that the baby girl did survive. Yeah.
Wow.
The mother, so it says here, Vicky Weaver was standing behind the cabin holding the 10-month-old baby. The bullet passed through the mother, but the baby was completely unharmed. Oh, thank you, Lord. I just wanted to check that.
Wow, I wonder how that baby and the sister are these days. I don't know if anyone can talk to them. That would be a very interesting interview.
If you hear something go against the wall, it's my little mouse because it doesn't click properly. So if I throw it, sorry, guys.
And that's not part of my experience. The people, when I radioed down, I said like several shots were fired and it was different because of the echoes. My account, even when I testified before the Senate, I heard and saw things that other people didn't. It's a human part of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, it went horribly wrong. And I'll say this about the sequence of events. If you're a sniper, your entire world is this big around. And it is, at the time, it was a 10-power fixed scope, scopes made by a guy named John U. Nerdle, who we were the only ones in the world that had them, the Marine Corps snipers, and we had them. But you can see a small but magnified view of the world, and all this stuff is happening around you. And if you need to engage, it's going to be an intensely personal interaction. There's an intimacy in being a sniper that I've never experienced in any other walk of life, and anything else I've ever done. Because that connection is so artificial and it's so real and it's so intimate and it's so standoff because somebody's going to die all at the same time.
Yeah, they're so far away and yet there's a thread connecting you two.
Brilliantly stated.
You know, it's wild.
Right. And you can't see anything else outside that world. If you screw up in the military in an active firefight, probably no one will ever know about it. Right. If you make a bad call in law enforcement, no matter how highly trained, no matter what the circumstances, you're going to pay for the rest of your life. You might go to jail. You're probably going to get sued. You're probably going to get fired.
Right.
The consequences are life and death, which are pale by comparison. That is the consequence. But if it's your job to exact that
narrow margin,
yes, and if you screw it up once, right, what's an all-star in baseball? Like 300, you're a 300 hitter, you get 1 out of 3 and you're an all-star.
It's the ultimate case of like Monday morning quarterbacking or whatever they call it. It's like you are now evaluating the scene with all the details, 360-degree view of everything that happened. And that's a much different view of what it is arriving 10 minutes later. What's going on? They're doing that. What? Oh, I mean, that's just, that's not the same thing. But you're going to get, judged by it. And in many ways you should.
Absolutely. In every way you should. In every way you should. But anyway, so it went wrong. That happened. That led to 3 years of every investigation you could possibly imagine. I mean, literally, another government agency literally showed up at our offices and did a search warrant. I'm not kidding.
Wow.
You're the top.
You're the FBI.
You're an FBI agent on this team. Nobody knew what we did.
Right.
That's a stupid statement. Very few people knew what we did, including headquarters. I remember they didn't do audits because they really didn't want to know what we did. So they didn't do an audit for, I don't know, an inspection for maybe 3 years or something. And they came down and they accused us of losing a helicopter and all these guns. I mean, it was a debacle because nobody really knew. But once that happened, it changed everything. It really changed everything. Then we get 888 and it's Waco.
Oh my God. These are back to back, basically?
Jeez, back to back.
He was also at the LA riots.
Oh my God.
But I'm not going to allow you to talk about that because, so all that information's in Cold Zero,
the first book was called Cold Zero, and it's a matter of fact representation of the whole construct, the team and those events and everything else at the time. Yes. That's another story, how I sold that book. I was in a card game with Brad Pitt at the Mercer Hotel in New York.
Oh my goodness.
And I'd written a novel and I tried to get this novel sold.
Where he talks about the book, I think that, put it at 41.
What he just said before is very, very important.
Okay, do you want to go over that?
When he said that a search warrant, they came in, the feds came in, the FBI came in and searched his offices. But what it's telling us is the protocol, the rules of engagement being broken, I believe is what I was suggesting before. There were orders given somewhere else And the fact that he deviated from the rules of engagement, who has authority over the persons who took these shots? That's what they were investigating, because how in the world do you violate those specific, you don't break those rules at all? How were they broken?
Yeah.
And who was put in there? So within the group, he doesn't talk about, he's talking about himself, but within that group, I believe, based on what he's saying, that certainly there was CIA assets embedded there to take those shots. And that way it creates deniability. They didn't, the true FBI agents didn't take the shots, but who took those shots and who gave those orders? Very important. We never get that answer, I don't think. But anyway.
It's interesting. They're saying in the comments, Linda, yeah, Weaver won 3.1 million in a lawsuit.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's, and you could see why in a civil lawsuit, you have the violation of the standard of the FBI policy, and that is the rules of engagement. That's the standard. So if you violate it, it's negligence at the very least and intentional, but you have that violation of a standard, right? If you look at the standard, we talk about it in the Koberger case about due process. That's kind of how you look at it. Well, here's due process. The only way you use this deadly force is under these circumstances, and they breached it. They violated it. So just fascinating.
Jeez. Yeah, this, if you were to break this whole thing down, it would be a whole piece just on the intro, because I didn't realize, I didn't watch this. I kind of skipped ahead to where he started talking about broken plea. Sorry, guys, I wasn't prepared for what he was saying. Yeah, I didn't actually know he was going to bring this up.
Wow. Yep.
Oh, Timu went to college and married man. 45 years. Oh, wow. Okay.
Wow, Timu. That's great. Oh, on the same, I just want to point out, because these are federal government employees, whoever's involved here, these are federal agents, and they're carrying out a summary execution. They're executing these people, right, in violation of their own rules of engagement. That's like taking BK, right? Due process. That's as if it's the same thing. You're executing someone without the proper basis to do so. So I believe that's also was investigated. I'll look into this after. That it's just fascinating.
Yeah, me too. Look, I have you read his book, the Broken Plea book, Big Amish?
I know you sent it to me. I've not. No, other than I've not completed it. I kind of left it there. I should have read the whole thing.
No, guys. Just so you know, I want to read it. We've got the book online, but just for me, I prefer to take the book and actually want to order the book and read it. You get distracted when you're trying to read it, but there's a lot to look into here, and getting your opinion on it's going to be very interesting.
Okay. Yeah, let's. Absolutely.
So, but yeah, maybe I should try and give it an online read. I've read certain pieces here and there, meaning, but it's not like Howard Blum's book. It's not a storybook. You'll see he's going to say that as well. Okay. So I'm going to go to.
Probably read the first 30 pages. And then skimmed. I just looked at it, but yeah, online, I'm like you. I like the physical book, but
yeah, I don't know why I'm like that. So he's gonna start getting into this book now. That's where we want to go. Really curious to see what Lucy says here. Okay, ready. So at any time, guys, if you might want me to pause. Well, I'm sorry. I do apologize. I have to stop and pause. Otherwise, there's a violation on the video, and I think you're not allowed to play it continuously. I'm not sure.
Commensurate. I mean, there was other celebrities in there, and Pete, who's a legitimate tough guy. So, anyways, it goes around the table. So finally, they're making side bets. He stands up and he goes, "Whit, you're such a blank," and he pulls out like a hockey puck of $100 bills, and then they're making side bets, money everywhere. And I'm thinking, man, how did I end up here? This is horrible. So, anyways, long story short, I finally said, "Screw you guys." I bet the pot and I won.
Oh, thank God.
So the next morning, I get a call from Pete. I'm not even sure I went to bed. And at that meeting, I ended up selling my first book.
Wow.
So after trying to sell Cold Zero, that's how Cold
what
Zero.
What a weekend you had.
Crazy weekend. Crazy weekend.
You came home and your wife's like, "I don't want you taking these trips." And you're like, "Girl, I got $10K in a book."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Take these trips."
And some Brad Pitt stories.
I go, I just made $50 and I got a book. And I go,
"You're not right, but I won $50.
I won $50. Where'd you get that new jacket? I still have it, by the way. I went out and I bought this leather jacket. So to this day, that I've still got that jacket.
Oh, that's
but anyway, that led to the book. The book led to me leaving the FBI. And my first book signing, because all these stories are crazy, my first book signing was September 12th at the Borders at the South Tower of the World Trade Center.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, that night was they did a press tour, and the first stop on the press tour was Larry King Live.
Sure.
Which was, you guys remember Larry King.
Yeah,
huge at the time, right?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, it wasn't going on Larry King just to talk about the book. All of a sudden, they needed somebody to talk about 9/11, and I was the guy because I worked Al-Qaeda. I was in Yemen and Africa and all these places chasing Al-Qaeda. And so that was those years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay. Now we're going to talk about Broken Plea. The book is called Broken Plea, The Explosive Search for Truth Behind the Idaho Murders.
Yeah.
I'm going to be honest with you. I acknowledge how enormous these were, but maybe because I don't watch the nightly news or anything. I personally wasn't terribly aware of this until I read your book. So I guess let's just maybe start with what happened in 2022.
I wasn't either. I knew nothing about this case until just before Brian Kohberger pleaded guilty to this case. Bottom line, November of 2022, 4 students at the University of Idaho were murdered in a house.
Yeah.
Probably the most sensationalized, high-profile case in the last 10 years, probably, because it's so horrific.
Oh my God, my mom could not stop talking about it. You can imagine.
I'm sure this was a sweet spot for her.
Yeah.
It was a huge story. It was a daily story on all the people that you might imagine, all those shows that cover crime and true crime and things like that. And everything from mainstream legacy news feeds to TMZ, everybody covered it. Bottom line is these 3 young women and a man were killed in a 3-story house. It was campus housing, but not a dormitory. And these 4 horrific murders, and then the investigation that ensued to the point where the authorities found a guy named Brian Kohberger. They arrested him in Pennsylvania. They brought him back. Grand jury indicted him for 4 counts of premeditated murder and 1 count of felony burglary, and assigned a public defender and got set up for trial. And the trial was supposed to happen in August of 2025, so a year ago. Just prior to trial, after 3 years of going through the whole court process, he changed his plea from not guilty. Actually, that's not true. He never even actually entered a plea. We can talk about that. Yeah. But he changed his plea at that time to guilty, and he stood in a change of plea hearing before a judge named Judge Hippler, and he pled guilty to 4 counts of murder and 1 count of felony burglary. He was sentenced to 4 consecutive life terms, plus 20 years for something, I'm not sure what it was, and a fine of $270,000, which was $50,000 for each and $20,000 for the burglary.
And this was all to avoid the death penalty.
Yes, because it was a death penalty prosecution at the time. Today, still, death penalty in Idaho is firing squad, which I think no matter who you are, that somehow adds a little bit more, right?
It's really hard.
I got to be honest, that would be my choice.
What?
Yeah, he doesn't mention that it wasn't the primary method of execution, right?
Yeah, the changing. But he's raising that death by firing squad. In a way, he's saying it doesn't sit right or doesn't. He's basically saying it violates due process. That's our moral compass. Like, and especially since we know that you had lethal injections, and we know that the manufacturers had issues or whatnot. But excuse me, if that
No problem.
the testing of due process with death by firing squad as the main method of the death penalty is an issue, but I guess it's past legal muster anyway. So it's
yes.
Yeah,
But
he's
you wouldn't,
him, right?
That's
He
you
cheers it.
wouldn't,
He cheers
you
it.
wouldn't hear it. The bullet's traveling faster than the speed of sound.
Well said.
So you're standing there and then you're not.
Yeah.
These lethal injections, there's some horror stories. God knows I don't
it's
want
all-
electrocution.
Just had one.
all horror.
Just had one like a few weeks ago.
Oh,
yeah,
really?
I saw
Another
yeah.
one.
Couldn't kill a guy.
Yeah, it can be terrible.
Terrible.
So
Ah.
for me, that's my choice, I think.
So that's the end of the case, right? And horrible, horrible, horrible story. Resolved to everyone's satisfaction with pleas of guilt, and it goes away.
Right.
Done. No trial, no evidence, no nothing.
Yeah.
Except everybody in the world already knew about it. Everybody in the world had their own theory, and all of a sudden it's gone. Then here I come.
Oh,
Yeah.
And here we are now.
Yeah, you had a friend
Yes.
suggest to you that you should look at this.
Correct.
And initially you're like, no, I'm not interested. What's there to...
I wasn't interested because I was doing another book, another true crime book on a case from Springfield, Missouri called the Springfield 3, which if somebody Googles the Springfield 3, it's a huge unsolved 35-year-old missing persons case.
God.
3 women disappeared, never found a trace. I was finishing that book,
Yeah.
and I was fully involved in all the edits that go along with that. And then I get this call from this guy and says, hey, we got to talk.
Yeah.
And I knew nothing about the case. I'd been
Yeah.
buried in another case.
And he was a student, right? A PhD student or something?
Well, yeah, let's go through in
Okay.
order.
Okay,
so
cool,
your
yeah.
book, I
Yeah.
like the way that your book is structured. So we start the book with the plea.
I think the first line is most stories don't start at the end, but that's where we were, right? So we
Yeah.
start this book with a solution, and the solution
Right.
is Brian Koberger standing up. So it starts at that July 2nd, 2025 hearing where he stands up. Judge Hippler says, we're going to change the plea. The prosecutor stands up and recites the evidence as it would have happened. He says, I did it 5 times. He says it again 5 times,
Wow.
and it's sealed and it goes away. But that is the end until you look at what nobody saw. If there had been a trial, this information would have come out. It would have gone through public scrutiny. And no matter what happened, everyone would know why. But because there was no trial, no one knew any of the information in that book.
Right.
And I don't think I'm exaggerating. There's very little information in that book that people knew prior to it coming out.
Right.
It's almost all new information.
And let's just start by saying
He's
this
lying,
book
yeah.
is not in
Yeah.
any way
Yeah, he is lying there.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of taking a shot at everybody that's been looking into this case.
Yeah. And promoting his own book at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, look, we are still we're still new at this. Hi, everybody. If I haven't said hi to you, I'm just looking at the screen. Sorry.
Yes. Hello.
Oh, Timu. Okay, so that was Montana. Wow. Okay. Yeah, you guys, I also don't think I can believe anything people are saying. He does bring up some good points here, but let's see what he says. He was on someone's channel, I believe, anyway. Whose channel was he on? Does anyone know? Anyway.
tempting to say he didn't do it.
Correct. It's not a
So
wrongful
let's
conviction case.
Yeah, start there. It's not a wrongful conviction book, but there's a lot of stuff
Oh, no, this is so...
that does
Whoa.
beg some questions
Oh,
that
yeah.
probably deserve to be scrutinized in a trial, and it would have probably been more satisfying for all of us to maybe learn. So then we go from the plea to 4:20 a.m. Sunday morning in Moscow, Idaho.
Yeah.
So tell us what happened that night.
let me just back up this. I think this book is 16 chapters or something like that. The spine of this book, it is different than other books I've written. It's my seventh, it will be my seventh published book. The one I'm doing with Dylan's not coming out till the fall. Okay. So it's my seventh published book. And I've written novels, I've written memoirs, I've written different kinds of things. This is different because it's a book built on somebody else's writing for the most part. Right. Each one of those chapters has a spine, which is a police document, an interview transcript. It is some primary source document, and I build the chapter around what they said.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I don't formulate theories. I say, this is what you don't know.
Yeah.
And it plugs it into the larger story. Yeah. And in many of those instances, in those chapters, some of them are outrageous.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, but we start with what we all would think happened, right? What we knew, which is 4 a.m, or what's the time?
Yeah, let's start with this. Yeah. What the prosecution has said at the hearing and all along is that sometime at approximately 4:15 on a Sunday morning, so Saturday night parties on a college campus going into Sunday morning at 4:15, various things happen that lead prosecutors, investigators, then prosecutors to believe this is when the crimes occurred. When that happened, 2 young women were killed on the 3rd floor in a bedroom on the 3rd floor, and a woman and her boyfriend were killed on the 2nd floor of the 3-story house, and the killer left. What really starts to stand out is the prosecution's timeline suggests that was about 5 minutes, between 3.5 and 5 minutes. And now, listen, everybody listening to this thing is going to have their own opinions and attitudes. Some would argue that initially they said 15, 20 minutes. When it comes right down to it, the timeline established with all of the evidence as presented by the prosecution was 3.5 to 5 minutes.
Wow.
To kill 4 human beings.
In a house you would maybe not know or know.
Okay, so there's the next question. 3-story house, 2 bedrooms, 3rd floor, 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, living room and a kitchen, 2 bedrooms and a bathroom on the 1st floor.
Yeah, other people were there, right?
2 other people were living in the house.
Yes.
And they were not killed.
Right, exactly.
He's not mentioning their names. Do you see that?
Yes. He's avoiding it. That's a very interesting. Why
I found that very interesting when I had a look over it a bit earlier, that he says it's out of respect for them, but I mean,
yeah, but you're leaving out material facts. It's important to know if there was anyone surviving or witnesses or anyone else in the house, right? However you want to call it. It's at least mention that. And he doesn't, or he didn't.
He's going to mention it, but he also isn't going to go there. Nobody wants to go there.
Yeah, he doesn't impute any type of, anything about their statements. If they're questionable or reliable, he doesn't get into any of that. I'm assuming he hasn't enough.
No, he doesn't. Let's go further.
Which is another issue, and they didn't call police for 8 hours. Yeah. They did not call 911 for 8 hours.
So the 911 call, the initial 911 call is a full 8 hours later.
Let's accept the prosecution timeline and say that the murders occurred approximately 4:15, 4:17, 4:18, 4:19, within that 10-minute window. That's the accepted timeline. The 2 surviving females in the house, residents of the house, went downstairs to the 1st floor bedroom and stayed there till they called 911 at approximately 11:50, 11:55 the next, later that morning. Yeah, noon. So, 15, 20 minutes here and there, 8 hours, right? After calling their friends who came over and went into the house before the police got there, and they called it in as a medical emergency, a passed out roommate. A roommate had passed out and would not wake up.
That's what they called.
That's what they called and said, which soon becomes a real issue.
There's blood everywhere. Yeah.
I mean, this crazy stabbing.
Yeah. Monstrous. Yeah. I mean, I've been involved in a very, very large number of very violent, awful scenarios, and this was bad. This is just absolutely horrible. It's such a complex case, and it's so difficult to put the whole thing in perspective.
Yeah.
The bottom line is this. It started with a 911 call. This a relatively new police officer in Moscow, Idaho, is a town of roughly 25,000 people, 26, 27,000 people, a university campus, So you have a police department that deals with cases like this. They didn't have murders. They didn't have the violent crime.
Exactly.
It's primarily
bar fights and
exactly right. I mean,
Yeah.
listen,
Petty
it's a
crime.
exactly. It's a college campus. So all professionals trained. He had been a medical first responder before he got this job. And let me start with three things. That the prosecution built this case around a 3-tiered or 3-pronged
pillars.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
One of them was DNA found on a knife sheath in the bed on the 3rd floor, supposedly. One of them was a white car that was tied to the suspect, Brian Koberger, the now convicted or pled guilty, and some cell tower information. So a car, cell tower, and DNA. Okay. On the surface looks great. So now we say, how do we get there? So what's very unusual about this case is nobody knew this at the time because there was a gag order on the case. Judge Hippler imposed a gag order. So even though people were talking about this nonstop, no one had any of the information.
Yeah.
No one knew what the evidence was. And so it was what the prosecution was saying, not what anybody had seen.
Yeah.
Right. So one of the first things that happened is, I think it was Dateline NBC, somebody leaked some really critical information to them in violation of the gag order. And the judge was unhappy about that and made that known to everybody involved. And that was a big issue, right? At the time. Everything that I did was after that. It was after he had been convicted.
Yeah.
Everything I did was after the gag order had been lifted and they were starting to disclose some of the information under Freedom of Information Act requests. So that's just a timeline.
Yeah.
Okay. So the timeline of the crimes and the response starts with something you don't see in a lot of true crime, which is a 56 or 60-minute body camera video. This officer named Mitch Nunez, relatively new to the department, was wearing a body cam, and it starts with him and his cruiser responding to the crime.
Yeah.
And the way those work, you don't always have audio immediately. The audio comes on, and you have who was it? Was it Jelly Roll? Who's The Enemy Is Me?
That song was playing?
Yeah, the song was playing
funny.
on the radio because I mean, every cops have a good ham radio because
yeah.
it's a boring job sometimes.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then so you're listening to My Enemy Is Me, and and then all of a sudden the call comes from dispatch. So you have the dispatch where they call into. Oddly enough, my last name's Whitcomb. Oddly enough, it was called Whitcomb 911.
Oh wow!
No idea why.
Weird.
And so they dispatch police and fire to the house, and that's where you see it. So the entire thing, the entire response is filmed with audio, which is remarkable. And no one had seen it when I started looking into this case.
Yeah.
So your question, what did I see first? I saw the video.
Yeah.
So you have a report, police fill out reports, paperwork. In this case, we saw the whole thing happen in real time on video.
Yeah.
Indisputable. And what happened in the reports and what came out was very different than what everybody thought, including the fact that when this officer goes upstairs, he goes in the house, goes upstairs, goes down to the 2nd floor bedroom and finds the first 2 victims, one lying on the floor, one in bed. His first words were to the other officer coming in behind him. His first words were, well, it looks like he killed himself. So initially on camera, which is now, I believe, widely available, his initial reaction was that this was a murder-suicide.
Yeah,
exactly right.
Yeah.
And so from...
That's
Wow.
very interesting. Yeah, I kind of remember that now when he said
Yeah, now that he's saying it, I remember that was the initial thing. Okay.
And you know,
the
just-
very...
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, keep playing. It just in my mind, it also brings up that one text that was sent to Ethan that says you're being cheated on. And so was someone trying to create a narrative that basically just stated here? Was there an initial narrative potentially being made that maybe Ethan killed himself because maybe he was being cheated on or something along those lines?
I remember
know,
something like that.
Yeah, I'm just throwing that out there. Not that it makes any sense, but it's something.
Okay.
the beginning, things didn't make sense. So there was another friend of the 2 surviving women who called friends of theirs, a girlfriend of theirs through one of the sororities, and a guy named Hunter Johnson. Hunter Johnson, a University of Idaho student, came to the house, and he actually went in the house, went upstairs, down the hallway, and discovered the bodies.
Wow.
He came back, he went to the kitchen and got a knife for protection,
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
which is not unreasonable.
Right.
Yeah.
And he had the knife in his hand
Oh, boy.
when police arrived.
Okay.
Okay, that's not great.
That's
Okay.
not great
It's not the
Yeah.
look
because
you're
nobody
going
knows
for.
what's going
yeah,
on,
It's not
right?
a great
yeah,
first
yeah.
impression.
No, and then he places it on a beer pong table in the middle of the living room. There's a big living room and a beer pong table right smack dab in the middle that you have to go around to get to the kitchen and around to get down there. So I started putting those various things together and saying, what does not add up? Because when you walk into any crime scene, there's a blueprint of what happened. You just have to interpret it.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are very good at it. Forensic psychologists, behavioralists, the profilers in the
You're
FBI,
breaking up
people who
there,
get paid to map blood spatter. It's a science.
Mhm.
It's reasonably good,
Reasonably is about as much as we could say.
I think.
Yeah.
I mean, so much of this stuff under scrutiny is
It's hard.
not replicatable.
And that's what happened.
Yeah.
That's what happened here. And the thing is, people had been talking about this for 3 years based on never seeing anything at all.
Yeah.
I wrote Broken Plea, but the publisher came up with the explosive truth behind search for truth behind it.
Mm.
And they were not kidding. I mean, this went off like a nuclear bomb
Yeah.
because so many people had so many theories and they had never seen any of this information before.
Yeah.
So yeah, what was there anything about the body cam footage that immediately was like inconsistent for what you had read about what it
Everything.
was?
Everything was inconsistent.
Everything.
And then it went downhill. So, I mean, we have so much to talk about in this case, and the book in particular. But I think the two things that stand out immediately from the body cam footage, what I think most people believe about the crime scene, and what to this day many people don't know. And I've got to say this about a book. I spent 6 months of 12-hour days mired in the majority of the police file. And I think we got to explain that. When somebody commits a crime, the police do an investigation. The investigation goes to a prosecutor. The prosecutor figures it out, and they use certain evidence from that file to prosecute and put somebody in jail. That's the model, basically, right?
Right. And then they're obligated to be turning over all the evidence that maybe they didn't want to incorporate in
That's
their
exactly right.
position.
And that's called the Brady disclosure. There was a case called Brady v. Maryland. It might have been, I think it was 1976. It's an old, well-established federal statute that says the prosecution has to hand their entire case, including, as you just said, Dax,
inconvenient
or exculpatory in any way to the defense.
Yeah.
And they did. And that is the Brady disclosure. The Brady disclosure in this case was terabytes of information. It is staggering how much information they gathered.
What was the 3-year gap between the plea?
Okay, so he does bring this up.
Yeah, the Brady material, we know the Brady material wasn't given over. The federal involvement was not provided. So he's not getting into and I don't know if he does, but with Ann Taylor's motions to suppress, for example, and the IgG, the DNA amplification, all these things are technically Brady material, but because they were developed by and maintained by the FBI and Hitler's ruling, you don't get it. But it's still a Brady violation. And hopefully that will come up in the PCR in our federal habeas, but he doesn't go into that. I don't think. Let's see. Well, maybe he does talk
in
about
the event.
That's
I mean, that's a
correct.
lot of time.
That's a lot
to
of
be
time.
accumulating documents. And,
Yes.
building this mountain.
So in some ways, I was shocked at how much information it was because it wasn't just the crime scene itself. It wasn't just the autopsy and toxicology reports of the victims. It wasn't just the analysis of blood spatter and DNA testing of blood found at the scene. It wasn't any one of those physical evidentiary things. It was also every online interaction anybody associated with this thing had ever done. Brian Koberger, the victims, the survivors, friends, all these people, every email, every social media post, every text message, every photograph, everything that anybody had ever done. And it became hundreds of thousands of individual pieces of information that I had to look through and try to make sense of.
Stay tuned for more Armchair Expert, if you
Well, how
dare.
did he?
Smart investing builds wealth.
Right. It's gonna play out.
Imagine investing 1,000 Rand every month for 5 years.
Does he talk how long it took him to go through it? Let's see. He said it took him a
Well,
while.
how did he go through it by himself? That's the question. So they're having an ad. How we did bring this up before. How did he go through all of this by himself? Remember we spoke about that?
Yes. Yeah.
In the
Right.
beginning.
100%. How did he go through it? Did he, and who did he rely on? We know he has a top secret security clearance. So that's one aspect, but how did he get involved to review that? So again, you could wear different hats. He's portraying himself as an author and former agent, but doesn't mean that he wasn't an agent or contracted specifically to review that the digital footprint that he's talking about. So he could be wearing different hats. We just don't know. He's portraying himself as a basically a journalist right now who happen to have access to all this information.
Oh, hi, Love and Other Habits.
Yes.
Sorry,
hello.
I haven't said hi to anyone. Just pausing quickly. Hi. Yeah, hi, everyone. If I haven't said hi. Yes. Remember we spoke about this. He's in here for a reason.
Yes. Yeah. The plan, and if I'm allowed just to use this opportunity, the plan of Ann Taylor, in my opinion, is not that she made mistakes. She created the record. I mean, everyone makes mistakes, but she preserved the record of all these issues that Whitcomb is talking about. She preserved that record by motions and the rulings of Judge Hippler. What the plan is, it's not that the errors, or the denials of the orders is the plan. The plan is that the information is coming out through Whitcomb, through Turvey, through Cy Ray. That is what I consider the plan, because it allows information to come up and it raises a question of, he's talking about Brady material. And we know the federal hand is behind it all. And so he's raising issues directly and indirectly, even though he's saying, well, they provided Brady material, but they didn't provide everything. And we know the problems with the DNA evidence, the amplification by Othram, the AI algorithms that were used for the amplification, which was never provided to defense counsel. So, and the backdoor, the terms of services being violated to obtain these databases, that's all violations of Brady and due process. So just wanted to say that.
Information.
And she interpreted it as one of the roommates, but you would definitely argue it was Brian's.
No. Well, great question. But the reason I said that is because she originally said it was one of the victims, and it turns out that she changed it to one of the other victims, because two women died in bed on the third floor, probably were found and attacked and killed in that bed, never got out of the bed. The other woman was probably Xana Kernodle, was probably attacked in or around the kitchen, chased across the living room, down a hallway into her room, where she died on the floor of her bedroom after an extraordinarily violent struggle. And her boyfriend was found in bed next to her, killed also. And her boyfriend was 6'4", 230 pounds.
I know.
Big guy. Big guy. So basically, Dylan Morton said in all these police statements that she heard this activity, and then she heard somebody in a bathroom, and the bathroom was all the way at the other end of the house, approximately 30 feet away, depending on how you measure it, approximately 30 feet away, two closed doors away, said, heard a male voice saying, "It's going to be okay. I'm here to help you." Essentially, I'm paraphrasing, but that was essentially what she said. She didn't know what had happened, and she thought whatever, closed her door, heard something else, opened her door, and she's face to face with a man at 4:15 in the morning wearing all black clothing and a balaclava. And holding something in his hands. And it had to be based on the proximity of the house, the construct of everything, the reconstruction that I've done, no more than 3 feet away, probably less than 3 feet away. So came face to face with the killer, 4:15 in the morning, for homicide.
You're going to see how he pretends not to remember certain things as he's talking about it, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But if you wrote a book, you won't say, "Oh, I can't recall." Or she was holding something, Because if he did review all the documents himself, then he would know that she spoke about
What he was
a
holding.
triangular object
Yes.
specifically.
She was-
So this tells me that he did not write this book himself.
yeah,
Could I be wrong?
or it was scrubbed. To scrub that part out. In other words, whoever, because anything that he writes, the federal agencies have to review. So he can't just publish a book based on his background and not have it reviewed. So he's going to have it edited by non-journalist editors, meaning the higher ups in the federal agencies, whether it's the CIA and FBI and DOJ. So he's leaving certain information out, and not by his doing either, and by him not actually focusing on the language that even Dylan used is suggesting that he was told, don't go there, don't define what it is, don't even speculate on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
He turns around and walks out through the kitchen and disappears. That's the story.
And why doesn't she call 911?
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So here we go now with what happened and what didn't happen and where do we fall in between?
Yeah.
Right.
Can I ask you, was she drunk that night?
The toxicology of the 4 victims. I can tell you the blood alcohol content of 2 of them. I'm not going to say who's who because for the respect for the families. 2 of the victims in the house, their blood alcohol content was about 0.28, which is roughly 3 times. It's more than 3 times the
driving limit.
Yeah, more than 3 times.
Yeah.
It's a good buzz. And 2 of them were 0.10. So 2 were mildly.
Right.
I mean, 0.10 is not drunk.
No,
Yeah.
0.3 is drunk.
Yeah.
And 2 of them had methamphetamine levels, and based on investigation, it was most likely, almost certainly, Adderall that they had bought and ingested. Adderall. So nothing terribly unusual for college kids on a party weekend. It's pretty normal behavior, right?
Yeah.
But in terms of impaired activity, somebody being asleep at 0.1 and waking up, it's not going to be a dramatic. You're not going to wake up totally disoriented, but at 0.3 maybe.
Yeah,
Right.
you might, You might ignore a lot of stuff you wouldn't otherwise.
But
you want to get back in fucking bed.
But we're going to get back to your original question, which is hers. And the answer is, I don't know. No one really knows. She says in her statements that she had been drinking a lot and actually itemized, and I think I put it in the book, what she actually
consumed.
What she did. And I should preface this by saying this, that you've read the book. It's an extraordinary amount of detail.
400 plus pages.
It's 430 pages. And I had to cut 30 pages of the book out because I couldn't mention people that were suspects for legal reasons. Right. And that's a monster part of this thing. So I wanted to write this book like a grand jury investigation, presentation. Like if I were an FBI agent, I do an investigation, I gather the information, I give it to a prosecutor, and then the prosecutor would present it to a grand jury. And it has to be very methodical and it has to be well thought out. And that's what I wanted to do with this book. There's no narrative in this thing. It's really saying this is what happens and what happened, and you figure it out.
Wow.
Exactly.
What about the other person?
Okay, so before we get move on beyond Dylan, you asked what she was drinking. I don't know because she said she drank a lot. Somebody else after the fact said she told them she didn't drink anything at all. So there's no way to tell. Is it germane? I have no idea.
Absent a time machine, we shan't ever know.
Exactly right. Exactly right. But what we do know from phone records and from the interview is that she decided to run downstairs to the first floor and spend the rest of the night in a room with another young woman whose name is Bethany. And I wrote in the audiobook Bethany Funk. It's Funke, because that's the way her name has always been pronounced in anything that I've ever seen. During an interview, she corrects the interviewer and says, "My name isn't Bethany Funk, it's Bethany Funka." My apologies to everyone. I don't know how she prefers to, because I didn't ask her, but Funke. So she had a room on the first floor. Dylan ran down and they spent the night.
Sorry.
This war reaches beyond the front lines. From the field.
Based on what they've told police in that room.
Okay. Because she was like, I saw a robber or whatever.
Exactly.
Okay.
But what happened, what they said happened, and what actually happened during those 8 hours is wild with 2 L's. disputed. Not the least of which is that they spent the night in that room because they were terrified in one statement, and in another statement, 2 sentences later said, well, we didn't really think it was unusual. People were in the house all the time. And I go in great depth in the interviews in the book about what they say, how they say it, and when they say it. They were never interviewed as anything other than witnesses. Nobody ever asked them hard questions about what everybody asks as reasonable questions.
Right.
Yeah.
Like if they were being treated as a suspect.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Correct. But when you go through the house, and I've seen, I don't know how many thousands, but thousands and thousands of photographs.
Just a quick one. Yes, Love and Other Habits. The 25 pages that wasn't published. We have to wonder about that.
Yeah, it goes to the, he said for liability reasons. Well, it could be his own liability as well, because from the federal agencies. But yeah, it could have been a lot more. We don't know what really was been edited. But that eyes have been looking over whatever. He probably does it by chapter. That's kind of my understanding. So every chapter, he probably gets it reviewed. And then finally, when the book's all ready, and then it gets another final review. I'm talking about the federal agencies reviewing it that way. So that way,
I'd like to know. I would like to know what is in those pages.
Yeah,
that would definitely be very interesting to.
Yeah, well,
to know why that was cut out.
It is, and ask him. I don't know if he ever gets into it. I think he did in maybe one of the interviews where he does say, the agencies have to review my material. But usually you don't finish a book before you let them review it, because there could be a lot of changes being made. You do it by chapter. So you get an idea of what's being authorized to be published in advance. And then when the book, prior to publishing, he also submits it for one last overview and okays by the different federal agencies. That's separate and apart than any legal reasons he may have. He might have his own lawyer to review it, just so he's not liable in a different sense of what he might say about individuals. So there's a lot of reviews going on, and even his publisher reviewing it. So there's a lot of reviews going on that we don't know how many changes really. But if there's ever an opportunity of questions to be asked to Whitcomb on this issue is, was there a review process per chapter by the federal agencies? Or what was the review process they did to because of his background being in the FBI and the CIA? So that would be something.
I'm wondering now if you guys remember Brent Kopacka and the shootouts there. I think that happened just when Brian was on his way back to Pennsylvania. Yeah. I wonder if that isn't part of the 25 pages that's been left out.
Interesting. Maybe, yeah. Could be.
Because that story also, I don't know if you know too much about that story, Big Amish, but that story also doesn't sit well with me.
Just on the periphery, I know that he has a military background. I mean, I know he wasn't a student at WSU, but he lived on the campus. And that, I'm not sure. So this is an older person, and I say older, similar to probably BK's age, if not a little bit older. So he's not like 21. That's my understanding. I could be wrong. Please correct me. But that's all I kind of know.
Exactly how he was. Yeah, that was. Yeah, I don't know if anybody else wants to weigh in on that, because Kopacka was gunned down, right? Wasn't he?
Yeah. Another Ruby Ridge situation.
Similar, very, very similar.
And Whitcomb. That's interesting that he said that the responding officer was a Nunez. He said that the call was Whitcomb, whatever, 911, whatever it was. They used Whitcomb as the call sign, or colon. Did you catch that? And he said, happens to be his name, but the responding officer or the dispatcher used Whitcomb something when they
Yes.
called it in. Just very unusual, very coincidental.
I was wondering about those pages, possibly Kopaka. I don't know. It could be anything, really.
Yes.
Could be phone calls. It could be anything that I want us to know about.
It could be regarding Josh Hurwitz and how he his involvement with whatever he was doing before and how he got to become state special prosecutor and his involvement in the case and the data dump and how, because he talked about Brady material. So if he's talking about Brady material, he certainly knows that 68 terabyte dump is not allowable in federal court by rule and unindexed the way that was presented in state court. So I'm sure, the silence on these issues, and he's writing a book. Now, granted, you have a license to draft the book however you want it, but it's leaving out certain parts. And if you're going to draft a massive book, as he's saying, for handing it over like a grand jury book to the prosecutor to run with it on a theory, you're leaving out potential Brady material or violations. So I don't see that. He was told not to include certain stuff for sure. What that is, we're speculating, but I think we have a pretty good guess. And you're right, Kopaka would be one of them because that happened right around that time. And why such massive force? Why was the SWAT team? Yeah, that's right. I remember that. Wasn't the SWAT team called in?
Yeah, I think that is what happened as well with
and he would know about that. That's his specialty.
So would Whitcomb know about this whole incident with Brent Kopaka?
I would think so. With his background of being exactly that role, I would give that one of the highest probabilities ever, especially if he's writing a book about the surroundings. It's not directly with Kopaka, but Kopaka has been mentioned in this. So is he not going to look at it? I doubt. I think he did know about it. Whether it's through the case or not, he knew about Kopaka. I think that's fair. I think that's pretty fair, in my opinion.
It does seem like that could be something. I'm not saying, but I mean, wasn't it the Whitman County SWAT team that came in and
yeah, I guess it would be Whitman County, wouldn't it? Yes. Whitman. Yeah, Whitman. Or is it it's Whitman, right? It's not so maybe okay, it's Whitman.
no, that's on Brent Kopaka.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating you bring that up. But that would be great questions to present him. Did you know about the Brent Kopaka, SWAT team takedown? Since you have
apparently, from what I remember, the commander told them to take him out.
Oh.
Yeah.
I just remember if that was taken out because why? See, just to use the rules of engagement that Whitcomb even said. So either someone's safety life or safety has to be at issue, grave issue.
Yeah.
And it could be, so you don't shoot, somebody who's about to commit suicide, right? I mean, unaliving. Sorry, didn't mean.
I'm not too worried.
But is he threatening somebody else, roommates and the like? That and how? This is actually a fascinating thing to maybe review some point. At least for me, I need to look at this and really, because the rules of engagement being violated again, potentially. And what you're saying.
So it goes back to what we were saying, or playing part of that interview in the beginning with Ruby Ridge, right?
Yeah.
And
yes.
Yeah.
You could see the same issues kind of pop up.
Same thing with Waco. Same thing with Kopaka.
Yes. the rules of engagement and being enticed. So what did they do to Branko Paca? And I'm sorry, you're making. What did they do to put him in that situation where he has some sort of weapon? I'm assuming he has a firearm and not a knife. I mean, I don't know what he was. I'm assuming he has a firearm.
He stayed pretty close to where Brian stayed, as far as I remember, right? And apparently he had threatened to kill 2 of his roommates.
But with what? It has to be an imminent threat, and you have to be able to carry it out. So what was it?
Let me see if I have a note here. Anyway, so I think he had a weapon, yes, because it was a negotiator.
Right, but I'm assuming a firearm, not a knife, but I don't know. That's something.
Yeah.
Okay, or both. He may have both on him. Who knows? But how is it an imminent threat to?
Love and Other Habits, Payne, his brother Carl, and Kopaka were all in the same.
Oh wow!
Beats.
I'm reading it too.
Wow. Okay. Thanks, Linda. Thanks. Now take your time.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, that's very interesting to know they're in the same unit. So,
and Kopaka was an army paratrooper. He'd served in Afghanistan, as far as I remember.
So Payne would know. I mean, would likely know.
Whitcomb would know.
And Whitcomb would, yes.
Yeah.
See, all this gets very interesting. These are the.
But I mean, if they're having all these negotiations again, I mean, why didn't they go in there with tear gas?
Well, and it raises another question too. You're right. What could they have done less absent using deadly force? It's one thing. It has to be imminent. The imminency of Kopaka causing someone else's unaliving has to be imminent, and you have to have the ability to carry it out. So if he's locked in a room, and if he's not pointing a firearm at anyone, even if he says, I'm going to kill so-and-so, where's so-and-so? If so-and-so is 5 miles away, you don't have the ability to do that. So this is something I got to look into, and maybe people in the chat could get in.
Yeah, I think people do know it. I mean, I remember the story. So, when I first heard about it, and I think he's also from Pennsylvania, as far as I remember, Brent Kopaka.
So they also have that. Okay, well, Pennsylvania's a big state, but that's another flag. Okay, that's interesting. Piecing these parts together. And why is he living? Well, I say campus because that's kind of my understanding. Maybe it wasn't directly on campus, but basically students use those residences as well. So, but why would he be at the WSU area at all? Unless he's working there or doing something. And I saw someone in the chat, say that he was a security guard. I don't know. That'll be interesting.
Let's see here. Let me have a look. Sorry, guys, I'm not ignoring you. I'm trying to keep up with this and the chats. Yes, so I do. Love and Other Habits said, yes, so Kopaka, what I understand, he had terrible, what she's saying, PTSD. And I know people have blamed him as a possible suspect. I doubt that that's the case. There's something else going on with Brent Kopaka.
And if he had PTSD, how it was treated then, I know that from friends, but PTSD for veterans.
But what Love and Other Habits says, I think because he had horrible PTSD, Payne played with that and made him more paranoid. That's absolutely true. Temu, yes, they were given a mission.
Yeah, interesting. but I'm just one point on the PTSD, how different medical groups, including the VA, treated PTSD. Those physicians would give like oxy, I don't want to say the names, I don't want to cause any problems, but they would use the oxy material to treat PTSD, which doesn't help at all PTSD. It just creates another issue of being dependent on a controlled substance that is provided by medical practitioners. So I'm just raising that. I don't know. I'm just raising it. Maybe that issue, because it comes up. It has come up with friends of mine. So
that is interesting. That is very interesting. So yeah, just sorry to go off the video again, but I wondered if it had something had something to do with Brent Kopacka, because that seems to be a huge gap in the story to me.
You're leaving it because don't forget, Kopacka is raised during the stop, one of the stops with the father. So
yes.
it's in there. Factually, Kopacka is in the Koberger timeline, and that is something he would have to have reviewed, that video footage. Certainly he would know.
If I'm not mistaken, I think Howard Bloom wrote about it in his book also, right in the beginning. He mentioned it.
Wow, I mean, so he knows about it. There's no way he doesn't know about it now. How much did he look into
that's
it?
true. Killing people for sport. Jeez.
Wow.
Wow.
Well, that's one way of putting it, and that certainly hits home when you say it that way. Yeah.
Oh wow, Love and Other Habits. Something Kopacka yelled right before I didn't unalive those students. Oh wow, I did not know about that.
So that was the day before, not the day. Okay.
Yes, you're
Wow.
right. I've heard a lot of people, I won't mention names, actually directly blaming Kopacka as a suspect, but I don't think so. It doesn't make any sense to me. What Love and Other Habits is bringing up here, if that was heard, it didn't do anything to those students, then was he a suspect? Or what were they doing? What were they doing with him?
That I need to
Such a strange thing to have happened right on the way when Brian is headed home, right?
Yeah.
So it's like they're saying, look here, not here. A distraction.
Or like an excited utterance, because was this, here's a question. Was the father coming to drive the vehicle, and I'm sorry, I guess he flew to Pullman. When did he get to Pullman?
I think he did. Yes, he did.
When did he get to Pullman? That's my question. Because if the Kopacka thing happened the day before, did BK call his father and say, "Look, I might be next. I'm speculating, right?
Wow, yeah.
Please come and help me get out of here because I feel my life's at risk." Is that a possibility?
I think if I'm not mistaken, it happened right at the same time that so you could be right, because I think they mentioned Brian's father, Michael, hearing about it on the radio so they were already on their way back. But maybe Brian knew that they were coming for Kopacka.
Right? He would know he's on. I can't be that far away. He probably in walking distance to Kopacka at some point.
Yeah.
So he would know that there was a shooting on campus, and with his background, he would know who it was and asking about it. I would imagine that. So would he call his father to get assistance to leave? If I'm just speculating again, but Certainly his father knew about it because he talked about it. Whether it was on the radio is one thing. Whether Brian told him to get him out there is another. I mean, is Brian a bad driver? Why did he need his father to come out there? Maybe they do. Maybe they do that. I mean, father wanted to help him drive back. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just suggesting that maybe Brian Kohberger knew or felt that his physical presence was at risk himself. That's all I'm suggesting.
Very possible. Very possible. Let's play a little bit more. I'm going to let him say what he wants to say. Yeah, this guy. Very interesting. Wow.
Graphs of the house writ large, inside the house, outside the house, details all the things that happened during the investigation of the house. Let's just say, for the purpose of this conversation, you have a murder scene in a bedroom on the 3rd floor. One bedroom, doorway, 2 young women killed in a bed. You go down to the 2nd floor, and there is at the bottom of the staircase, Dylan's room just to the right. Then you go up a step about 6 inches into the living room. The living room is blocked. The doorway is blocked by a beer pong table. It's a white table from Costco or whatever with beer pong, set up for beer pong, right? You go through that table, turn left, and you go down a hallway.
Really quick, you are serious about beer pong when you have a purpose-built table.
College,
you are committed to beer pong.
That's what you do.
That's what you do.
Yeah.
And they had a party Friday night, and they were playing beer pong.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, it's college housing. It's there's nothing unusual at any of this, except the placement of the table, which becomes massively important.
Oh God. Okay.
You go down a hallway. At the end of the second floor hallway is the second murder scene or crime scene, where the murders occurred, which is a woman and a man killed in that bedroom. So I would start by saying this. If you, as a non-trained reader, viewer of a documentary, whatever the case may be, you would look at the 3rd floor bedroom and you'd say, oh my God, this is horrible, but it's a typical crime scene. With an edged weapon. There's blood on the walls. You have spatter, transfer. You could do the math. It's
stabbing,
wild stabbing on the ceiling, on the walls. It makes sense in many, many ways, and can be dissected, analyzed, and evaluated based on that. This is a science, for better or worse, well established. You go to the 2nd floor bedroom and you see the exact same thing. Perhaps more violent because of the nature of what happened inside that room. But the same thing. And one body on the floor, another in the bed, covered with a blanket, okay? Then you go back and you start going through the file. And it primarily comes down to this. The prosecution, everybody hires witnesses. The prosecution, the defense, everybody hires witnesses. The prosecution hired a witness named Paulette Sutton. She submitted a report. I think it was roughly 64, 67 pages, something like that. And in her report, she goes through the whole crime scene and she says, this is what happened. And that became the center of the prosecution narrative. It was done and written long after the fact, just prior to trial, not long before the trial. In that report, she said various things. We don't need to go through all of them, except for this. And this comes back to the body camera footage. When you look at the Mitch Nunez body camera footage going through the 2nd floor living area where the beer pong table is, down the hallway into the bedroom, it looks normal. You don't see any blood spatter on the walls. You don't see anything. It just looks fairly normal. And it's fairly close up and it's fairly high resolution. So things stand out. After the fact, you go back and you look and you find out there is blood everywhere. And I'm not saying everywhere, meaning it's blood, it's painted green. I'm saying that there are blood trails in most open spaces in that 2nd floor.
There's droplets everywhere.
Everywhere, but you can't see them unless you get up very, very close.
Yeah.
They're dramatically different. The blood stains on the 3rd floor and in the 2nd floor bedrooms look like blood spatter, drips, trails.
Helter-skelter.
Helter-skelter. That's exactly right, Dex.
Yeah.
The blood stains in the common areas of the 2nd floor look dramatically different. So the first thing you'd say, well, what does that mean? Her report, now this is a report done by the prosecution, says, quote unquote, that they were diluted with an unknown substance. So the first question you might ask yourself is, why were the blood stains on the 3rd floor crime scene
partially cleaned?
Okay, well, that's what I'm saying. So the blood stains in the bedroom on the 3rd floor and the blood stains on the 2nd floor, they look identical. And they look identical to crime scenes that we're used to seeing in fiction or otherwise, right? All the space in between has blood stains. The staircase, the walls coming down the staircase, across the room, the beer pong table, there's a knee wall, there's a far wall, there's baseboards.
Yeah.
There are blood stains, all of them. All of those blood stains have been, quote, diluted with an unknown substance. That begs the question, what is the unknown substance?
Yes.
And how did it happen?
And why?
And why?
Yeah.
So she offers the answer, and her answer is that Xander Kernodle was found on the floor of her bedroom on the second floor. At some point had suffered an injury to her mouth. She suffered grotesque injuries, right?
Yeah.
So Paulette Sutton speculates that the blood was diluted with the saliva from her
You're saying
mouth.
all that blood in the entire house
Was
is from
from a
this
bloody
one part of the
Right.
mouth?
I'll just say it's implausible.
That's the saliva cleanup. Oh my God. But is that report public? I've never. Hello, Wendy. Wendy, I think we lost. Does anyone hear me, or we've just lost connection here?
Sorry
Yeah,
about that.
No worries.
Saliva. I mean, sorry about that. I had my microphone muted. Has anybody ever seen somebody lose that much saliva? Why is he saying this?
Well, he's saying the expert report, I guess, for the prosecution said that, right? But he's just saying, is it plausible or implausible? But wow, and is that report public now? Does anyone?
I'll have to go check it out. But something else that could dilute the blood is cleaning materials.
Of course. And does he go into that? Of course, it's clean.
No, he's not going to. I don't think so. I can't recall, but I doubt that he will.
And one more thing that it came out by the interviewer, helter skelter. Wow, that term, and also something you raised in the past, not to go off topic, but being some sort of a ritual. So that just all came to my mind when he said those words, and blood being used, and he agreed, helter skelter. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Wow.
Go sideways.
He's telling a lot here.
That, first of all, she suffered those wounds on the floor of her bedroom, and none of the blood spatter in her bedroom were diluted with an unknown substance.
Right.
Where she suffered the injuries.
Yeah.
Right. So how do you go back out through the entire house and every single blood spatter is somehow diluted with the saliva that she suffered in her room?
Except the one back in the other room. Those rooms both don't have it.
No, they have zero dilution with an unknown
that
substance.
makes no sense.
Do you think often prosecutors are in a
Wendy, if you
position
could stop,
where
just so we
they
can clear this,
recognize
you up.
the defense is going to make a meal of all this other blood?
Right.
And they don't have an explanation.
Okay. Just to be clear, if it's an unknown substance, it can't be the saliva, because the saliva, you would have the DNA of the saliva. You already have DNA of the victim.
Mm-hmm.
So you would match it up and it wouldn't come out unknown. So that's all BS. Or you have, right? I mean, you have the ability to test it. Now, if you don't test it, it means you're not following rules either. So again, it's a violation of due process and Brady material and stuff like that. But it's just BS. You have the ability to determine if that's saliva or not and match it. But if you do it, you don't call it unknown substance.
Yeah, it's very telling that he says that.
Yes, absolutely. But that's powerful in my view. So now we know there's a cleaning agent involved, or some other agent that we would love to know what it was.
Well, I mean, yeah. I'll give you my thoughts now.
But you're not allowed to throw your hands up in the air and go like, we have no explanation. So your best bet tactically is to have some explanation.
Yes.
Like if you're trying to read between the lines of like, do they really feel convicted about this theory, or is it they need one to present to counter whatever one the defense is going to come up with? They can't go, yeah, we don't know about that.
Stay soft with 100 days of freshness. Our new 3D technology locks in fragrance and neutralizes malodor.
Smart investing builds wealth. Imagine investing 1,000 Rand every month for 5 years. Over 5 years, you'll...
Well, we have no explanation.
They should be able to say that.
They did. The prosecution is a lead prosecutor and attorneys that are actually going to litigate the case. They are law professionals, and that's what they do. But they have to do it with information gathered by law enforcement. In this case, local, state, and federal. You have local, the Moscow Police Department. You have the Idaho State Police. You have the Pennsylvania State Police, where they actually found and arrested Brian Koberger. And then you have the FBI. Federal, state, and local, different rules, different jurisdictions, all working together. Massive complexity in terms of the case. And then you have the defense poking holes in it. And I've asked experts from both sides, specifically the defense, I've asked about that question. And their answer was they just were going to ignore it. And the primary reason I wrote this book is because the questions are so overwhelming in this case. I don't see how it's possible that somebody in good conscience with the ability to question those things doesn't.
I know.
I've lived 5 lives. At this point in my life, the last thing in the world that I wanted to be is that guy that I have 0 social media. I have I've had a very large life. Right now it's
sorry about that. I just had to mute quickly. I wanted to just give my thoughts on the staging, right? And the evidence there, right? So if you look at those crime scene photos, then the volume of blood that was found is inconsistent with the injuries that we're seeing. So we know, just my opinion, that there is some kind of cleanup. But also, when they talk about diluting of the blood stains, right? Yeah. We have to also remember they used that amido black.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Was it what was the diluting agent? What was it? What was the compound used? And so could law enforcement diluted the scene themselves? I guess that's what you're raising as well. Could they have caused impacting the crime scene? That's an interesting point. Very interesting. Yeah, you're right about that.
Yeah, I mean, did they, when they used the amido black? I don't know.
Yes. And where?
But it does suggest evidence of some kind of cleanup efforts.
Yeah. And think about what he's saying. If the prosecution was allowed to provide that expert at trial, and you go with the saliva, and they're allowed to do that, which makes no sense, as we just discussed. But if they're allowed to introduce evidence like that, just see how unfair the whole process is for BK if he would have went to trial.
Yeah.
And that's just one.
Wasn't there Dr. Sutton, and he also mentioned something about bodily fluids from the victims, like saliva, and he also said something in that report about mucus. But yeah, this is not a sufficient explanation.
It doesn't pass the smell test.
No, definitely not. But look, there was a lot of forensic testing in that house with the amido black.
Yeah.
Almost excessive use of it.
It would be great to know the exact locations and the blood spatter on a kind of a map to show where that amino black was used. That would be great. I don't know if the defense I don't know if that was ever done, but that would be great to know, because it would go and further your theory you could see the full extent of that use and what blood splatter was affected by it. So,
but if you look at it, I don't want to mention any names, right? But let's say they sprayed cleaning solutions onto basically every surface, right? That had blood on it. So why wouldn't you first remove the blood?
that's a good question. Are they saying they couldn't see it? So if they
Because
couldn't
he
see
said
it,
you can't really see it. But just my thoughts, I could be a silly question here again, but wouldn't you remove it first and then put the amido black? Because this causes everything to become diluted and it'll start spreading everywhere.
yes. So going back to kind of like rules of engagement, but in blood sampling and analysis, what do you do? What is the protocol for it? What is the standard of doing it? Do you just throw the amino black all over it? And if you do it, do you know you're going to compromise that sample? So if you know that the sample is going to, the integrity of that sample is going to be questioned, that should be the last thing you do. So I don't know. I have not looked into the whole blood analysis of this. That's a whole other thing I need to probably do. But you're raising very valid and strong points.
So amido black. You saw that in the images, right? It's almost like a synthetic dye, and it's used to detect or enhance blood protein, right? Can you hear me okay? Am I breaking up?
Yes, now you're fine. Sorry. Go ahead.
I'm fine. Sorry about that. So it's used to detect blood proteins. So when you spray it on any kind of surface, it's going to bind to the protein.
Yes. Okay. And then, but when are they supposed to use? What is the protocol for using it? What's the standard? Do you just use it all across the crime scene indiscriminately? How is that determination made, and why? That's all. I'm raising those questions. It's kind of what you're raising.
Very interesting.
Yeah. Absolutely, it's interesting. That's what he's raising. But it's saliva. It's saliva.
It can't be that much. Maybe what he's saying is, oh gosh, no. Let me just play.
Very small. I live in a small Midwestern town. I write books. When I got involved in this thing, it was explosive. And all of a sudden, you have to endure what you guys do all the time, which is the insanity of society, right? The only talent that everybody in the world can have very easily is hatred. And it's so easy to voice in this day and age, right? So go do your thing. I'm not, whatever. I get thick skin. But I felt compelled to do this because I felt if I didn't, I would have felt very badly about myself.
Again, you're not saying that this all went the wrong way. It's just that things needed extra looking at that did not get
it goes back to your commitment to the Constitution. There's a rule of engagement. I may or may not agree with it, but that's the principle I agreed to uphold. And it's like, for right or wrong, these rules of jurisprudence are there for a reason. You're presumed innocent. You get a trial by your peers. These were novel things.
They are the foundation of our system as a society. And they do go wrong. I say in the book that American justice system is the best in the world, but it's not perfect, right? In my opinion, if we as a society throw our hands up and say, oh yeah, this is great, then I think we've lost the battle. I think we've lost. If we don't say we are the people and we are doing this among ourselves, for ourselves, by ourselves, then we deserve what we get. And that could be you. It could be me. It could be you. And I've been on all sides of this. I was the object of Ruby Ridge became a grand jury for murder. Right? I've been on that side of it. Murder's not typically a federal crime, but I've worked 2 murder investigations, one in a federal prison and one on an army base. So I've worked murder investigations, and I've worked as an investigative reporter for some of the biggest publications in the country. So I look and say, if I have that skill set, and if I stand here and talk to you guys, who I have enormous respect for, because of what you talk about, the human condition. And I say to you, oh, you know what? I'm just going to go over here. I'm just going to ignore it.
Yeah.
I'd be ashamed of that.
Yeah.
So I'll take the hit.
Yeah.
I believe in this. I believe in it strongly.
I have such a weird question. Okay, so when the officer came in and on the body cam, he says he thinks, or he's like, I think basically murder-suicide. But the guy had a blanket over him. How could it have been a suicide if he had a blanket over him?
Let me just say this. Looking back and saying, I think that there are things that stand out, like you just mentioned, things that stand out that are so compelling and they are so troublesome that you just can't look past them.
Right.
And one of those things is the difference between the two discrete crime scenes, the third and second floor bedrooms, and the space in between. And we know that the killer had to go from the murder scene on the third floor, down the stairs, across the living room, down the hallway, to the murder scene on the second floor. We know that. It's unequivocal.
It could have been a coincidental.
No.
Yeah.
Right.
Two different double homicides.
There's a path.
Yes,
right.
Yeah.
Then he had to come back.
Yeah.
The same path, see Dylan Mortensen outside her bedroom door, and then run out the kitchen door. That's the theory, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's blood everywhere in the second floor bedroom. There's blood everywhere in the third floor bedroom. There is no blood on the floor anywhere outside the threshold of the doorway on the second floor to the threshold of the floor on the third floor. There is zero blood.
And the dude's carrying a very bloody weapon.
Okay, well, we'll
he got blood all over him.
I can hear people screaming at me right now saying that's not true. There is evidence in photographs and in the file of a luminol blood identification fluid.
Where it gets high lit. But
yeah, exactly right. So blood gets wiped up, but you can illuminate it with a protein reactive chemical and says it's evidence that there was blood here. There is a spot on the second floor that shows evidence of blood on the floor, but there is no blood that's been tested, identified, or recovered from the floors outside the two bedrooms. So the blood on the second floor, and I should say this very clearly, the blood found in the common areas of the second floor, the cast-off blood that was diluted with an unknown substance, it was all cast-off blood by somebody swinging in their arm. So the killer had to be soaked in blood because the blood on the second floor came from the third floor. Came down the stairs, they bounced off the stairs in a few places, and that blood has been analyzed. The blood on the second floor that's on the knee wall to the staircase, on the far wall, on the beer pong table, on the molding, on the sidewalls, all of that blood that was diluted with an unknown substance, all of that was cast off by somebody swinging their arm, and they had so much liquid blood on their person that it was cast off like a wet paintbrush. So it gives you a very, very clear and macabre sense of what was going on, the horrific violence. And how did that get altered? And we'll come back again, and I'm talking again in very, very, very vague generalities right now because of what we have for time. But supposedly this all happened in...
Hi everyone, I'm Megan, and this is my little
he's being very vague.
Right?
Yeah,
3.5 minutes. So they got into the...
He might be playing a
sorry,
role.
guys. Go on, Big Amish, say that.
Well, he might. He's playing a bigger. Maybe he's playing a role in the PCR as well. Who knows? But so he's basically. I mean, I didn't realize how in depth his knowledge of the crime scene is now, and what he's telling us is that saliva stuff is all bullshit, right? Because that's not going to splatter. What he's saying, that's not going to be splattering against the wall. Maybe if it dripped, if you argue it that way, but he's saying the unknown substance that was in the blood DNA is splattered down the staircase, down, not in the hall specifically, but the staircase in the bedroom. It's missing in certain areas, but it's throughout the house in many areas. So how could it be saliva? And if it's coming off a weapon, well, he's talking about the knife. So it's being splattered across. So that is powerful stuff. But then again, what is he doing? Is he using his journalistic license to make these statements? Is he being potentially, is he a potential witness to any future PCR statements regarding the cleanup? Because it goes to Brady material and to the whole unfairness of the process of that plea. So he's saying there's evidence that doesn't support the prosecution's theory. At least this one expert. He's pointed out that one expert talking about the saliva, and what he's saying totally contradicts it. So that is a powerful piece of
And that's what goes with my theory as to when he says he knows a lot more that he's not speaking on and he's being vague.
Yeah.
When we talk about those images, and it's still my belief, and I could be wrong, so please don't come for me, that this crime did not happen inside that house.
He's kind of, he's making suggestions, right? How do you not have blood if you unalive someone in a room and there's blood in the room, and you walk past the threshold of the door, somehow blood stops and is not on any of your clothes or shoes or the weapon you used. It's none of that. It just disappears for a while. So it doesn't make that common sense. It had been a cleanup. Clearly, other people are involved, based on what he's saying, and raises the question: where then were the bodies moved, and how do you get that clean area? Was the hallway? Was there evidence of a cleanup in the hallway, or was it just clear? In other words, were there tarps possibly used and bodies transferred from a different location into the room where you could have a cleaner kind of hallway? And then were the bodies being transported? Were they unalived in the rooms? So could they have been softened up? I'll use that term. Could they have been softened up before? At least some of them. So they didn't yet pass away. And then you do the actual final blows within the rooms to create a crime scene, at least scene within the bedroom, and to conceal the fact that they were the softening and everything else, the torturing or interrogation, which I also believe happened. I believe they were interrogated, and I don't believe they were interrogated in the rooms. So that's my belief as well. Don't butcher me on that.
No, that does make sense. Absolutely. Okay, let me carry on playing here quickly.
House. They killed people on different floors, found them and interacted and killed them on second floors. Then they got out of the house, got back into a white car, and that white car, Brian Koberger's car, or what they said was Brian Koberger's car, drove down past a video camera. So not just the crimes in 3.5 to 5 minutes, but getting into the house, out of the house, into a car, and driving away in that period of time.
And kind of doing some cleanup in there.
Right, and I'll just say this. I don't want to be too grotesque for this, but the bottom line is that the two victims on the second floor, Ethan Chapin and Xander Kernodle, they collectively suffered 75 edged weapon injuries. Now, you think of I don't mean to be too much here, but you just go like this.
How quickly could you get that done?
75.
Exactly.
So, and the next thing is, it's one guy pleaded guilty to this case. You've got a woman fighting for her life on the floor, and a guy in bed 3 feet away. There's evidence that she actually made it to the bed, and one person killed her, 65 wounds, roughly 64 wounds on her in this horrific, violent fight. She fought even the police said she fought like hell. And her 6'4", 230-pound boyfriend is lying in bed watching all this happen.
I know.
How's that? You explain that to me.
I don't understand any of this.
Explain that to me.
Yeah.
And then he was covered with a blanket. Well, let me rephrase this, because I don't want to say there are things that I know and things that we could speculate. All of his wounds, and his wounds were significant, were inflicted on a naked body, and the blood evidence was in the sheets and the mattress itself. The blanket, when police found him, was on top of all of those wounds.
So it was done post.
Somebody covered his naked body after he'd been murdered.
Yeah.
One person confessed to these crimes or pleaded guilty to these crimes. So it goes like this, and there are 10 or 15 or 20 of those things in this book.
Can you tell me quickly about Brian?
Brian Koberger, and I'm not speaking out of school, is a very odd guy. He was 27 or 28 at the time of the crimes. He had moved from Pennsylvania He's lived at his parents' house. He got a master's degree and an undergraduate degree in, people say he was getting a PhD in criminology. He was, but his undergraduate degrees were not in criminology or other things. But he got into a doctoral program at Washington State University in Pelham, Washington, which is only 8 miles away. So you've got University of Idaho in Moscow, Idaho, and you've got Washington State University in Pullman, Washington, and they're only 8 miles apart.
Wow.
So the border's just right.
Right, exactly. So he goes to Washington in June from Pennsylvania in a white Hyundai Elantra. He moves up there. He gets a cell phone when he gets there, and he moves into an apartment. I think it was a 2-bedroom apartment. And he is a teaching assistant, as is often the case in PhD programs.
Mm-hmm.
So he's a teaching assistant, and he's a student at the same time. He's a very, very awkward guy. I've been through all of his emails, all of his cell phone communications, his texts, his photographs, and his messages. And he communicated with his family, his mother and his father and his 2 sisters, and he loved his dog, and he loved baseball. He liked the Yankees.
How about friends?
Almost zero.
Yeah.
Almost zero. Let's just say roughly 3,500 text messages.
This is not true. When he speaks of almost zero, there have been people that have come out and said they were friends with Brian Koberger. Few people.
He's and maybe that's purposeful. You're right. I think he's doing that purposefully.
You're going to hear what he says now.
From the time in July when he got the phone to the time the police seized his phone, and I'd say, I don't want to give an exact number, but I'd say fewer than 0.1% were to anybody other than his parents or his sisters.
Wow.
Almost no one.
Mm.
But he's a very odd guy. So I am not a psychologist. My wife's a doctor of psychology and not a criminologist, but he was very spectrum
yes, that's
defined.
What it sounds like.
Right,
Yes.
he was very, very awkward in terms of interaction. And the most obvious scene is when he showed up in court to enter his plea. He didn't say anything at all. He just stared at the wall.
Oh, wow.
And he never entered a plea of not guilty. The judge actually entered the plea of not guilty on his behalf.
Whoa.
He didn't say a word.
Had he had any?
You know what? I'm gonna just stop there quickly. This doesn't make him awkward. This goes back to my theory of this being very ritualistic with a whole cult going on there. And I think Brian's a little bit smarter than them. He knew that no matter what he says, he's playing right into these little Satanists' hands. Just my observation. He knew what he was walking into there. Yeah. Not Hitler, sorry. After. Why does he need to say anything? He doesn't need to say anything.
There's my de facto Alfred plea.
Right there. Right there.
Prior incidents with law.
There was a published history of drug addiction, maybe opioids when he was younger.
Okay.
He had a condition that he called visual snow, where he said that his vision would be obscured like an old television set. People don't even know what I'm talking about. But back in the day, televisions would just go to snow after a certain amount of time, where he said that's the way he saw the world.
What?
So he had a visual affectation that was physiological. He had behavioral issues, which would be spectrum related, interaction, extremely awkward socially.
Yeah.
And he also had a history of substance abuse, and he had lost a lot of weight. He'd been quite overweight and he had lost weight. So he had a history in his 27, 28 years of at least those three anomalous, socially interactive issues. The visual thing, the behavioral thing, and the substance abuse thing. So he's a very unusual guy, but most people described him as very, very bright and focused in very awkward ways. And we've all had those conversations. You don't know social cues and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's very easy to migrate from those things to, oh, he's a weirdo and he makes a murderer. And what you run into with a book like this, anytime you interact in a situation like this, invariably you have people and they say, oh, I don't care. I just know he did it.
Right.
or I don't care. I just don't believe it.
Yeah.
And you saw, like, I just saw the Michael Jackson documentary.
Okay.
And the O.J. Simpson documentaries and all of these documentaries.
Mm-hmm.
And you see in documentary form, people in their own words saying, oh, he didn't do it. I just feel it. I just know it. And they just don't care about evidence.
I know.
I don't think truth really comes into play. I have taken my own cases with a prosecutor to jury trials. So I've sat there in jury trials and
watch your theories get tested.
Exactly. And I've presented cases to grand jurors. I've been through all elements of what we see playing out in this case, in this book. And I tried to bring that experience to bear.
I have had the experience of being convinced someone did something.
Yes. Yeah.
And finding out they didn't.
Yeah.
And being humbled by how wrong I was.
Well, look at the Innocence Foundation. And again, I am not, this is not a book about wrongful conviction. I'm saying there are things that don't make sense. I'm going to come out and say, I have no theories in the books. I'm going to say somebody cleaned up the crime scene, and I'm going to say he did not do it alone. And I'll sit with any cop, I'll sit with the prosecutor, I'll sit with the defense, I'll sit with anybody and say, you show me how this is conceivable. There are things so wrong with what we know about this crime scene.
If they opened up the timeline enormously, would that help you? What if they go, we totally fucked up this timeline?
Some people have. There are
here we're going to talk about the timeline. Do you want me to play it and then I'll pause it for you?
Sure. Yeah, that'll be great.
Theories that it happened as early as 2:15. There are so many theories out there. I wouldn't even know where to start. Before I sat down with you guys, I went through the gauntlet of all the true crime podcasts. Some very bright people and some not very bright people. 14 hours. I've spent 14 hours trying to explain things from my background and from these various things. It's like it never happened. I know they did it. I know he didn't do it. I know he did it. I know she's this. I know he's that. And so I'm not trying to change anybody's mind because
who cares?
You can't,
it's a way,
really.
No, you can't. It's not, whatever. I do believe if somebody takes the time to read this book, they will have done they will have vested themselves enough to have an opinion.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'll respect that opinion.
They never gave us a motive.
Okay, so we talk in a business, say you have to have motive, means, and mechanism, right? Why, how, and then and what actually happened. First thing is a cop goes into a crime scene and they've got to say, all right, what happened? You look at the physical evidence, you look at the blood spatter, you might find a murder weapon, you might find whatever forensic evidence you're going to use. Test it for DNA, blood, all of that, right?
Yeah.
But you have a behavioral aspect in every crime too. So that's why we have the National Center for the Analysis of Violent Crime within the Critical Incident Response Group and the Behavioral Analysis Unit. Now there's numerous of them. And I worked there for a long time, the years after I was at the hostage rescue team, okay? All they do is look at the crime scene from a behavioralist standpoint. What does the crime scene show? You have things like a killer will sometimes pose a body. It'll be a very disorganized crime scene. People like Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer were serial killers, but very, very different in terms of the methodology of what they did. The Long Island killers. You can have a serial killer, you can have a serial rapist, you can have a bank robber, you could have all these crimes, and they would show different psychologies behind those crimes.
Right.
So the behavioral aspect of a crime scene investigation is critically important. That's why we have what society calls profilers, behavioral analysts, okay?
Just quickly on the chat, I agree. They've always pushed the story out that he's so awkward because he speaks only to his parents mostly, and he didn't have what did they say originally, that he only had 16 contacts on his phone, right? I don't know what's so unusual about that. If I could delete everybody from my phone, I probably would. So Big Amish and I spoke about this many times.
Yes. And just because you have contact.
He says in one breath that he isn't social, that he lives up in the mountains and writes books. Yet he's calling Brian out for being socially awkward. Do you see the contradiction there?
Absolutely.
I like Lucy's comments. This guy's a schmuck. But there's some comments here as well that he prefers his dog. Yeah, I think most of us do.
Dogs are family, our pets, not just dogs. But he, painting Brian into a kind of a, the picture of a serial killer. That's basically what everyone's trying to do in so many ways, showing him as an outcast. This doesn't have any friends. That, not having a lot of friends is also a sign of intelligence. Not everyone is your friend, and you really only have, if you really think about it, you only have probably in your whole life 5 very good friends that you consider them friends. Everyone else could be acquaintances. That's just my opinion. So, but he, what else? Anything else in the chat that we could comment on? Or?
Yeah, just a lot of people. Oh, yeah, Linda, I agree with you as well. I also sometimes lose people as a contact, or sometimes you'll get a call and think, you know what, I'm just going to block this number. I don't even want to. But yeah, maybe to your point, Linda, maybe Brian realized that people are not truly his friends, and the only people that he actually felt he could trust was his family, because he does seem to be very close with them. So the fact that, I know Ashley Banfield made a big meal out of, she said, oh, why does he only have 16 contacts on his phone, or 14? What kind of weirdo has that? And I don't think it's strange at all.
No.
I don't think it's strange.
I think it's prudent, especially for anyone doing what he was doing as well. I don't think it's strange or out of the ordinary at all. 100%.
Absolutely. Kay's Jason Art said lynching mentality. Yeah, that's true. That's why I always tell you there's so much ritualistic behavior in this. It doesn't mean that these are not real people, but I might feel they're all part of the same cult.
Yeah. But in one
and
thing,
you see it as he talks about Ruby Ridge, Brent Kopacka. It's like they're trying to wipe people out.
Yeah.
What are they covering up?
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What he said about Ruby Ridge was mind-blowing. Disregarded the rules of engagement. Who has the power to do that? Who has the power to basically ignore that? It's above any director of the FBI, I could assure you that. So who is it? And it just raises a lot of questions. And you have basically almost a similar situation, although I reserve because I have to watch a lot about Kopacka. But from what you told me, if he is not an imminent threat to anyone, if he's in an apartment, even if he has a firearm and a knife, if there is no imminent threat to someone within distance, right? And you could argue, well, a firearm you could shoot, far away. Yeah, but you could see that, you could determine that. We don't even know where he was. He could have been just in his bathroom. So how are you going to, and locked in there? I don't know. I don't know the full facts, but it's raising a lot of questions about this. Certainly want to look into it. And just one other thing I wanted to say about the blood. There was male blood B and D, if I remember correctly, in the reports. That was either in the, not on the hallway, but on that and on the steps, and on that it's in between the hallway and the steps. It's like this little half wall, if I remember correctly. So you have male blood DNA, and not Brian Kohberger's, and there's no blood DNA of Brian Kohberger's at the scene at all, but you have male B and D there. So, and we don't know who that is, but yet you get the 10 skin cells amplified by Othram, and you got your case.
Yes, I get a very, very bad feeling with this guy.
Yeah, he knows a lot more, but he could also be, just out of fairness, because I don't think all this is, the plan is his book coming out, Cy Turvey all coming out, and him being on the circuit here, I'm not saying it's 100%, but it seems he would be a witness that you could use for PCR relief. A witness, get an affidavit from him, because he's basically saying that he's testifying that there's problems. So this is the plan I've been talking about. It's not that any errors of Ann Taylor was a plan that she committed errors. No, the plan of Ann Taylor is what we're seeing play out, which is the book, his public statements, and Ray and Brent Turvey. So I'll shut up now. Thank you, Wendy.
No, keep talking. This guy takes me back to a little bit of Greek mythology. He reminds me of Apollo. If any of you know who Apollo is in Greek mythology, he's kind of the one standing out in front. He's wearing, pretty much a clean suit. He's making everything look completely legal.
But he did say they made errors.
It's called Apollo logic, right? These people don't get their hands dirty.
No, that's a good way of putting it. Yes, that's a good way of putting it.
Yeah, he's like the front man. All right, let's play.
So you go into this crime scene and say, all right, look, let's gather all the evidence. Look at where they found this, and let's look at what the blood spatter shows us, the patterns, all of that, and say, let's go back to motive, the foundation of every crime. Why did somebody sneak into a house at 4:15 in the morning on a Sunday in the middle of November and kill 4 human beings? Butcher 4 human beings. Yeah. That's the first question you've got to answer, right?
Sorry.
It's a critical.
Sorry, Big Amish. You see what I'm saying? They always tell you that these demons love to tell you what they're doing.
Yeah, they say it out in public. Yes.
Yeah, they love to tell you because they undermine our intelligence. Somebody in the chat might disagree with me, I don't know. But
no.
Yeah, there's something strange.
Yeah,
strange about this guy.
He loves showing his tattoos, by the way.
Yeah, he does.
Why is he doing it?
No, he's making himself very relatable. Something isn't right. Okay.
So the first question that comes up after that is, was it directed at one person in particular, and then it unfolded from that?
Yeah. Did it get out of hand?
Right. So looking at what I've gleaned from other experts in this case, everybody's looking at it and saying, well, who killed these people? Is it a boyfriend? Is it somebody robbing the house and it went wrong? Yeah. Mostly people would say it was a sex crime. Everybody in this case, from the prosecutor, Bill Thompson, on down, has said there was no indication of any motive of sexuality of any kind.
Right.
This was not a sex, none of these 4 were sex crimes. No. We can look at the behavioral aspects of these crimes. It'll tell you a lot about the person that committed them. Not me, but a trained professional. In this case, what most people call profilers from the FBI. Mm-hmm. The FBI brought the BAU in. They never did a profile. They never actually did a profile on the killer. I'm not sure why. They were involved. So you go to the 3rd floor and say those 2 homicides occurred before the 2 homicides on the 2nd floor based on the blood pattern going through the common areas of the 2nd floor and down. It would be impossible.
What direction the person's traveling.
It had to be. It had to be liquid blood cast off, and it goes in one direction, not the other direction. And this blood from the 3rd floor.
Like if you're blowing blood out of a fan.
Yes.
Yeah, you would know which direction.
Right. You're not going to get blood from there to go over there if the fan's blowing that way.
Right.
And so there are some things that would be extraordinarily difficult for somebody to refute, an expert to refute. And to the best of my knowledge, nobody's tried to, right? So the murders almost certainly started on the 3rd floor. So then you say, okay, why would somebody come in to the house, ostensibly through the kitchen, and go to the 3rd floor and kill these two specific people first when there were two other people that would have been easier.
Yeah. If you just wanted to kill people.
Right. And in the door, the first door you would have come to in that house when you walk into the kitchen is Dylan Mortenson's door. She survived. Nobody killed her.
Yeah.
Right. So they went past her door, turned right, went upstairs to the third floor, went to all the way down that hallway to the most remote bedroom from any entrance in that house. The most remote bedroom was the one where those two women were killed. Okay. Yeah. Two women in the bed. The mechanism of injury, motive, means, mechanism. The mechanism of injury on those two women was dramatically different than the mechanism of injury on the two on the second floor. Very different. Two women lying in bed together. The woman on the left.
Musicians, want your sound to reach the right ears? If you're struggling to get noticed on YouTube, Sprizzy uses YouTube ads.
Hit team.
Kayla Goncalves.
Pause?
She was.
No, you're fine. You're fine.
She was asphyxiated, where she was strangled or smothered. Something occluded the blood flow to her brain to the point where she suffered what's known as petechia. Petechia is burst blood vessels on the soft tissue of your lips and your eyelids.
They lost oxygen.
It's a pressurization issue. I'm not going to go into the whole thing, but yeah, it is. They got choked. Okay, basically, for lack of better terminology. So that's one injury. Okay, the second was she suffered severe, disfiguring, blunt force trauma to her face and to her head.
Oh.
And she is the only one of the three that suffered those injuries.
Oh my God.
Okay. Yeah. Then she was stabbed and cut to the actual cause of death. The other two were according to the autopsy reports, were contributing causes of death, but she suffered because of edged weapon injuries to her upper body. Okay. And we can talk about what happened in the bed and how it happened, the bodies being staged or posed or moved and all of those things. But it is very clear that she suffered injuries that far exceeded anything necessary to kill her.
Right.
And none of the others were choked or asphyxiated, and none of the others suffered those disfiguring blunt force traumas. You couldn't tell who she was, right? Skull fractures, things of that nature. So then you start thinking about it and say, and I'm talking about a lay person, not a professional, and you say, why would someone looking to murder in a non-sexually oriented crime, it's not a robbery gone wrong, 4:15 in the morning, somebody found them in that room. You have to have knowledge, you have to have all of the logistical aspects, but most important, you have to have a specific reason to act out that kind of a life-altering event for yourself, the killer, and for them on that one person. And it far exceeded what it would take to kill somebody.
Right, if it was a random.
Right. So then the behavioralists come in and say it is a rage crime. Somebody hated her and not only wanted to kill her, but wanted to act out their rage upon her. Choke somebody, beat somebody, stab somebody.
Hurt them in all the ways they were capable of hurting them.
Exactly right. Exactly right. And then disfigure them to the point where nobody could see them because you don't want that. But proximal to that is the woman who is in bed with her. Directly adjacent, touching. She suffered the edged weapons, but not nearly to the same extent.
Mutilation.
The mutilation.
So he had time to do all this, and the other girl couldn't get out of bed. Like while that was happening.
Okay, so that's the next question. So how does one person use two hands to choke somebody, then beat them, and then stab them dozens of times, while another woman is
lying there?
Lying there.
Yeah.
And the one that was lying there, is not one of the toxicology reports. She would have been conscious. She would have woken up.
This is a lot for one person to be managing,
especially under those circumstances. It's a life or death fight. People are dying.
It's a minimally you're getting up and running.
Minimally you're getting up and running.
I'm not suggesting everyone's going to try to fight.
You know which of those things happened? None of those things happened. Never left the bed. Neither of them ever left the bed.
No sense.
It makes no sense. And then so let's just argue, and I think it's a very, very plausible argument that she was the victim behaviorally. Then you start looking and say, well, who wanted to go after her specifically? And then we come up with the next big issue in this thing. She did not live in the house at the time. She lived in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, and she came back.
He's saying it, but
sorry, just Big Amish has only got about 15 minutes before he has to head out. Just let me know, Big Amish, I did respond to you there. But just in the chat. Oh, hi, everybody. If I haven't said hi to you, I'm just watching the video. Sorry about that. But yes, that is true. That's been my belief as well. Dylan and Bethany weren't harmed because they weren't there. That's what I've been saying all along. There's no way that this happened inside that house. There's absolutely no way.
Yeah, I agree. So yeah, at least yes, you're right.
Yeah, and Alicia brings up a good point as well. Somebody cared enough to put Murphy away and cover them. Because how is it that Murphy doesn't have one drop of blood on him? This is not normal.
No, absolutely not. We know there was more than one individual. Many individuals needed to be participating in this.
Linda, what is he? The Flash. I always think of him like a little mosquito. It's interesting. The Gonzalez family said this little mosquito just flew in there. Didn't leave a footprint, nothing.
They're flying.
Yeah, no mozzie.
Peter Pan flying.
Little mozzie flying in there. Didn't touch anything. Jeez, kind. Interesting that they called him that. So
that's great.
Just for that weekend, and she was moving away. She had committed. She didn't have to be in school to graduate, so she had moved home, and she was moving from home to Texas, where she was going to start a new job. And she just came down for that weekend. So not only would someone have to hate her to the point that they would commit those crimes against her, they had to know that she was going to be there, because she at the time did not live in the house.
So
you start doing the math and you start checking down a list and say, there's something going on here. There is an individually focused rage based on some very strong emotive violence.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a familiarity that you knew this person was going to be in that place at that time in order to attack them. And then it starts narrowing your window of who might be plausible suspects. Then you get downstairs and say, how does the second floor crime scene differ? And the answer is profoundly different. The blood evidence shows, and the prosecution didn't dispute, that the woman on the second floor, Xana Kernodle, was attacked near the kitchen, more or less basically outside Dylan's door at the bottom of the stairs, chased through what was the beer pong table is a whole separate issue. Through the beer pong table, turned left down the hallway, casting blood all over the place as they ran. Yeah. Then she was finally attacked on the floor of her room and died on the floor in this horrendous struggle. Now, imagine not just the violence of what occurred upstairs,
exactly,
but the sound of it.
That's what I'm saying. All of these sounds,
the noise of it.
The woman running, she'd be screaming at the top of her lungs, and no one's hearing any of this.
So second floor, the woman's running away. There's a body. The house is 1122 King Road. There's a house adjacent that is 1112 King Road. They had basically a ring cam style camera device. It was kind of screwed into a light bulb, and it picked up at 4:17 in the morning. It picked up what everybody believes to be the sounds of her screaming and yelling, and a loud bang at that time. So you could hear the violence inside the house.
From the other house.
Yeah. And nobody heard it in the house.
Exactly. What?
And when it gets to the bedroom, the boyfriend, whose blood alcohol content was, I'll say it. He was one of the people who was 0.1. He was not drunk.
Right.
And he had been home at that point probably for 2 hours in bed. So he, 6'4", 228-pound high school athlete, is lying in bed and doesn't get up when his girlfriend is fighting for her life on the floor. You start going down this checklist of things.
It's just hard to imagine.
It's hard to imagine. In a sense, again, I'll say it again. We're talking generalities about a book that's very specific for 430 pages. It's laid out.
Well, and the goal of it, and these are going to be my last couple questions for you, which is part of the reason for this book is to kind of examine the gap between public confidence and evidentiary certainty with these high-profile investigations. So it's a little bit of a warning bell, right?
It's a warning bell, and I'll say this. I worked a large part of my life, maybe not chronological. I was in the FBI 15, 16 years. And my brother was a local cop. I believe in law enforcement. I know law enforcement makes mistakes. I don't always take law enforcement's side.
Yeah.
But I respect the process, and we need it in order to society, right? And I look at this thing and say, if we don't question these things and ask questions, then shame on us. But I go back to it and say this. You're talking about a police department in a town of 25,000 people that he used to work, underage drinkers and loud noise complaints from frat parties.
Exactly.
I mean, that's not demeaning. That's just a reality of what they did.
Yeah, experience. How much experience do they have in this type of...
Right, and the training involved in it. Yeah. And within that, I say everyone, I made the mistake of saying they did a great job in a podcast and somebody went nuts. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying they did a great job. I'm saying they did an extraordinarily extensive job. The extent of the case that they
worked it hard.
Staggering.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable.
Whether they were great at it or not, they worked their asses off.
Right. There were so many suspects. I would say, conservatively speaking, there were 12 really hard people that were named in police files as suspects that I don't talk about in the book because for various reasons I'd like to, but the cast of characters in this thing is staggering. It's unbelievable. How many people could have been responsible for this? They had white cars that matched Kohberger's. They had relationships with the victims. They were so many different things.
Yeah. Also, cell phone tower pings in a town of that size. It doesn't really. I don't know how much that.
But I'm glad to know that there were other people that they ruled out. Because hearing this, I'm like, how did they pick this random?
Well, okay, let's talk about that. That's so important.
Yeah.
Well, how did they pick this guy, right?
Yeah.
And that's the question that nobody's really resolved to this day. The narrative says that police found this white car. Brian Kohberger had a 2015 white Hyundai Elantra. At that time, these car manufacturers have a subconscious. They pick the same model and they all make a version of a small SUV or whatever. They're all very similar. Yeah. At that time, many, many manufacturers, Mazda, Chevy made cars, four-door sedans that had the same contours, and they had a window behind the door in the back that was kind of like an eyelet that went up like that. Mm-hmm. And when the FBI came in and identified these cars, they basically went to surveillance cameras everywhere around Moscow, and they found cars driving around at that time of night, and they tried to make them look like they were all the same vehicle because they were white, they were four-door, and they had the window.
It was the only part I would have been useful in.
Oh, you would have. Yeah. Was it like because of the camera in the driveway?
Yes.
Let's see what he says about the car, Big Amish. I want you to weigh in on this quickly. Sure. You still got a few minutes?
Yes, I definitely do. Yes.
Towards the end of it, at least, so there's not too much of the video left.
Okay.
Ring cameras,
got it.
Surveillance cameras outside banks, ATMs. Exactly right. Exactly. Okay. So they came up with this white car, and the white car was seen on that same camera that I just mentioned, that 1112 King Road camera. So they put it all together, and they said it's all the same car, and they tried to. Nowhere does it show Brian Kohberger in that car, and many places in the police file I found cars that were almost identical, Elantras, white four-door sedans. Windows fit the profile. So that was how they said they found Brian Kohberger, because of the car, right? Mm-hmm. Because of the video camera. The next thing is the cell cam. The FBI has a team called CAST, which is the cellular.
Hey, you want to say about the car we got mission?
Yeah, it's such a generic vehicle. And whether it's a Hyundai, and there's other manufacturers that make similar models, right, vehicles. Mm-hmm. And for that to basically touch upon Brian Kohberger's actual vehicle is, is it that pretext we kind of talked about when they were pulled over with his father twice on the way to Pennsylvania? Is that the footprint? The feds telling, law enforcement locally what to do, what to look at, and what to touch, because now you have a data point, right, to establish the state probable cause on how Brian Kohberger accidentally came about. How did that data point come about? And they're hiding the federal hand again. That's how I would look at it. That's not a coincidence.
Definitely not.
Right.
Especially when you look at that one vehicle, and looking at it the other night, you can see that car's not 100% white. There's another car behind it. I don't have it on screen now, and I don't want to try and pull it out because I know your time is limited. So let's go listen.
Or analysis support team, I believe. So they came in and they did an analysis. This is very common. If a crime occurred someplace down the street, CAST would come in. It's in television shows all the time. They call it dumping the towers. You dump the cell phone towers, you gather, and I've seen them. Hundreds of thousands. Yeah. It's just line after line, phone number. So that's how they zoned in on Kohberger. But here's what they found out. His phone was shut off at 2:54 in the morning, and it didn't come back on until 4:48. And somebody else, maybe I'm off by a minute, but not much more than a minute. So for those 2 hours around the time of the crimes, his phone was turned off.
The Colgate Education Sponsorship Campaign is back, and you can stand a chance to win. Buy any 2 Colgate toothpastes and swipe your extra savings card at ShopRite or Checkers. Give your child a bright smile and bright future with Colgate. T's and C's apply.
Wow.
And his phone pinged early.
Sorry, but go on, she was saying?
No, I was just suggesting that, with the Stingray and similar devices, you could basically drain a battery from someone's phone. And you could also remove it from the cell tower being connected.
We talked about those boxes before.
Yes. And we talked about the Stingray a little bit, but I'm just suggesting, I'm not saying it happened here, but I'm suggesting that the feds have the ability, and we know, I believe even Ray mentioned the Stingray. I believe that's true. So if he's not raising it just out of the blue, there must be a reason for it. But the technology exists and has been abused, and you could mimic a cell tower from your Stingray. The Stingray could also drain someone's battery close enough. So you could use it for different reasons, unethical reasons outside the rules that they are intended to be. So I'm not suggesting it happened, but they have that ability to do that.
They do, for sure.
And his phone pinged after. So many people speculate. I speculate in the book. I don't have theories, but I say this is what the evidence shows, because I obtained all the FBI CAS data. And I obtained the report that they prepared for trial. The CAS team had a thing to hand out as an exhibit at trial. I think it was 31 pages, and it looked like an 8th grade science project. It looked like a PowerPoint that had been printed out on paper. It was standard colors, and it had a picture of a cell tower that looked like an evergreen tree, and one that looked like a cactus. And these pictures, and I'm reading this thing, and I'm going, "Come on, guys! I mean, you're the FBI, right?" Sorry. I was surprised at it, but it showed this. In order to dump a tower and to triangulate a cell phone call, and I know this unequivocally because I've been involved in these before, you have to be able to do the math. You have to triangulate. In order to do that, you've got to have
3 points.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Or you've got to have a preponderance of towers that would allow you to narrow down, because a cell phone tower will ping on a tower, and if it, for various reasons, it might go to this tower, this tower, this tower. All that data gives you greater specificity in terms of narrowing it down.
Yeah.
In Moscow, at that time, Brian Kohberger's phone was AT&T. And the AT&T towers, there were a very, very small number of towers. So they could only narrow down those pings to within what I estimate to be a 10-mile distance. You could be 10 miles away, it would pick up that phone tower. If there had been 2 or 3, then they could have found something more. They didn't have those things.
Yeah.
So Bill Thompson goes out and says, we narrowed him down to within 200 meters or whatever else. And I look at this data and say, oh, you can't.
How?
How?
Yeah.
I mean, I have the report. I mean, it would have come out at trial. So the next is cell tower pings. And a guy named Ray was the defense expert hired by the defense to be the defense expert. He was a cell tower analyst, and he just came out with a book, I think last week. I don't know what it's called, but he talked about this in general, but there's a section in the book about this case. And he says the data was horribly flawed. It was terribly misrepresented. It was, the thing was a debacle. And he was going to testify at trial to the insufficiency of the CAST analysis. So that's the second pillar of the defense. The third is DNA. So everybody that knows this case knows that Brian Kohberger's DNA was found on a knife sheath in the bed on the 3rd floor. The evidence shows that the knife sheath may have been found on the floor and moved to the bed by police. And I say that for this reason. So the Moscow Police Department seal the crime scene. They go to a judge and get a search warrant. The search warrant was done by Nunez, who in the search warrant was looking for a gun and bullets because he thought he shot himself in bed.
Right.
So they go and do the search, but the search was actually done by the Idaho State Police because they have greater resources. So they bring the crime lab down. It's a guy named Talbot, Detective Talbot, professional, a very seasoned professional. You fill out a report, might have body camera video, not in this particular instance, but you get a form, and it's just a form. It says Idaho State Police, date of investigation, address of investigation, and then it's like a spreadsheet, and you just fill it in. So you say number 1, second floor bedroom.
Just a quick one. Where is it here? Carrie asked, how did he get access to FBI data? Carrie, because he's got a clearance, special clearance, as Big Amish mentioned.
Yes. And I just want to point out what he mentioned, because I have not read Cyray's book. I'm not sure I'm going to even buy it, but
no.
But what he said was very interesting. He said that there's a whole section, right, whole chapter about what went wrong or the errors of the FBI regarding the FBI cast.
Mm-hmm.
Now, from my videos and what I've stated in the past, that information can be used. Basically, they're providing the information to attack at the PCR level without being identified as witnesses. Mm-hmm. So when we also talked about in prior shows how the Idaho Statesman was trying to get information from the defense team, their expenses and the like, right? And so finding out who you're hiring as your expert by not being paid during this stage, they're able to provide information that you could then take into and present an affidavit to support those issues that Whitcomb is raising outside the box of being exposed through a payment or expense sheet that ultimately will become public, but it's after they want to get the discovery and the PCR level. So this is kind of interesting. That's what it's suggesting to me. I'm not saying it is, but it's certainly suggesting they're using whatever tools they can to hide information from the prosecution at this PCR level to know what they're doing. And that's what all this is coming out in public, in my opinion.
You're right. I think you are right. Jethro also brought up something here with Brian as a teacher's aide, alienated WSU female students. I'm not sure if they gave his name first. That is interesting. That is very interesting.
Yeah, that is.
Could be very well.
There was a complaint by, I think, there was a student and also his professor, but I don't know how far up the chain it went. And does the PD review? I don't know how that all.
I know they worked out some improvement plan for him because there was this whole smear campaign with the students against him. He's acting strange. He looms over them. He grades them too harshly. So, yeah, could be. Interesting point.
By coffee cup, whatever. And that's, then you bag the item and you put it in evidence.
Cataloging the whole.
Page 2, item number 14, K-bar Marine Corps style knife sheath found, next box, found on floor next to victim number 3.
Next to the girl.
The girl. And it's not a typo where he said found on the 3rd floor next to the victim.
Yeah.
It says found on the floor next to victim number 3. In the very next line, it identifies her again as victim number 3. So there are some anomalies, and you would look at this and say, now, wait a minute. Are we going to take police at their word and say that we're going to believe you? And the answer is yes. So should we believe him when he say he found the knife sheath on the floor? One might argue, yes.
Yeah.
Then why in all the photographs and why in the analysis is it found in the bed under her thigh? So there are so many anomalies like this. And then there are chain of custody issues. The biggest one is this. Ann Taylor, in trying to defend her client, would go to Judge Hippler and file motions. I'm not a lawyer, but it's pretty common knowledge. Some of them called motions in limine, and there is a thing called a Franks hearing. Franks is not Frank apostrophe S. It's a guy named Franks, like the Brady disclosure, which is Supreme Court law that says that if a witness is deemed to be corrupted in some manner, they lie in a case, they're found to commit fraud in a case, whatever, they will always be identified as a Franks exclusion. They can still testify, but they have to announce that they've somehow jaded, right?
Yeah.
So there was a Franks hearing asked for before Judge Hippler by Ann Taylor, the defense attorney, and she came in, lead investigator of the case, asked him if the FBI ever told him that Brian Kohberger's DNA was found on the knife sheath, and he said no. One word, no.
Bam.
Period.
Wow.
Oh,
Everybody who knows anything about this case thinks that Brian Kohberger's DNA was found on the knife sheath. So then the question is, well, wait a minute. What do you mean the FBI never told you that? She said, what did the FBI tell you? And he said that we should treat this with no more credibility than a tip.
Oh, great.
I can't remember if he said anonymous tip, but they said a tip. So then you go back and you say, well, wait. How is this conceivable that the evidence is a white car?
Millions of those, yeah.
Cell tower,
not
maybe
great.
more than not great.
Yeah.
And now you've got the DNA. And you have, in a court hearing before the judge, the lead detective in the case saying the FBI never told him the DNA was on the knife, Brian Kohberger's DNA was on the knife sheath, and that it was sufficient only to the point where it should be given the weight of a tip.
And they themselves didn't have their own DNA lab to send it to. So they were reliant on the FBI.
Great question. The Idaho State Police do have a crime lab.
Okay.
The sample was sent, the knife sheath was sent to the crime lab. They sent a DNA sample to a crime lab in Texas, Woodlands, Texas, called Othram Labs. It was a private lab. So the state of Idaho didn't want to build a lab themselves.
Yeah.
So they contracted to a private laboratory. They took the evidence to that laboratory and they gave the evidence to the laboratory. In the Franks hearing, now this is not me, I'm just reciting what's in the Franks hearing. Ann Taylor, the defense attorney, asked them about the DNA and said, where are the reports? The whole point was, you say that his DNA was found on the crime scene. Where's the reports?
Yeah.
And they said, there are no reports. And she said, what are you talking about? And they said that they identified the DNA sample on the knife from the knife sheath and tied it to one of 4 brothers. And she said, who are these brothers? And he said, I don't know. I don't have the name. Why not? Because there's no report. Where's the report? I don't know. And it goes through this whole thing. But the salient feature, to come back to your question, is, and it's a great question, is were any of those brothers named Kohberger? And the answer was no.
Yeah.
So the Idaho State Police took the DNA sample back and they sent it to the FBI laboratory. And it brings up the next question. There are 2 types of DNA. You take a cheek swab, you send it off, and they do a genetic genealogy research, and they say you come from, I'm quarter Cherokee and quarter Irish and quarter Lithuanian and quarter whatever, right?
Yeah.
Then you have the DNA, which is matching the DNA that I just put on this to a sample from my cheek, and it says, that's my DNA. That's a different type of DNA. This DNA, they never tied to Brian Kohberger. They tied
Be good for a few minutes, Big Amish, that we're nearly done here.
Yes. This is important. Wow, this is great. This is great stuff.
Okay. Do you want to comment on what he's saying here?
Well, he's raised the whole issue of parallel proceedings, number one, right? And how the feds, who are really the ones driving this whole case, is being hidden. And we use Judge Hippler's statement. He said that the tip, right, it was only to be considered a tip, right, when they gave its name. That's one. And the second thing is that they were playing a support role. The FBI was simply playing a support role and provided analyst support, basically, analyst. Othram, we know anything you give to Othram, the reason the state gave it to Othram, when they amplify it, when Othram amplifies it, that is a second search. If your first search doesn't provide an identity of someone, and you now have to amplify it, you are now creating a second search because there's already exculpatory data now for Brian Koberger.
Yeah, the first search didn't match to him.
Yes. So then you have the amplification. You're going outside now the state, right? Because now we know what's being controlled again by the feds. But Othram's going to amplify it. Second search, no search warrant. Boom, case should be over. That's number one. But they're using, again, new technology. We talked about that yesterday. How the feds use new technology to get ahead, all right, of SCOTUS and case law, so they could do their investigation a whole different way before they're exposed. And this is the unlawful part. And then you have the AI algorithm used to amplify it, which defense doesn't even know about. No one knows how AI, Othram's amplification process. They're going to argue that it's proprietary. Okay, that's proprietary. Just like Apple, right? They said we have proprietary information. We're not going to show you how the backdoor to the text and data that they protect allegedly for privacy, but Celebrate has that ability to do it. So it's the same thing. They're using third parties, so-called third parties, to violate the rights. And it's clear as day that what Othram did is a second search. They violate due process, they amplify it, and they send it back, because they're not the ones who are identifying Brian Koberger. They amplify the DNA using a due process violation of the AI algorithm, and they send it then to the FBI, if I'm not mistaken, or to the state first, and then that goes to the FBI. But that's all should be unconstitutional, and it will be, because there's no way that passes under any type of scrutiny, due process. Eventually that will be addressed, I believe, unless they just waive it. So that's my take on it. It's very powerful what he's saying all along here, but he clearly identified parallel proceedings. There's no doubt about it.
For sure, he did.
Genetic genealogy match of some kind,
like someone who had submitted previously to like a 23andMe or something.
Yes, exactly, right.
Yeah.
If all of these problems exist, why would Brian Koberger plead guilty?
I mean,
just prima facie, we already know he has a lot of different issues. I mean, then you get into this amazing frontline called the Confessions. This terrible event at a naval base in Virginia.
Yes.
And they got fucking 8 dudes. You find the most pathetic, defenseless 8 dudes, and you get them all to roll over, and none of them did it.
Or like My Favorite Murder.
Yeah, I mean,
what was the one?
Oh, Making a Murder.
Yeah.
Making a Murder, very, very similar. But John Grisham just did a great book where he talks about wrongful convictions and confessions. And the Innocence Project has freed somewhere around 200. I think it's pretty close to actually being 200. And those are all just DNA. They'll only take cases, or these cases are only things that they could prove because of DNA, right? Wrongful convictions. Of those 200, I think it was 27% were started out as confessions. Those were people that confessed to the crimes
that they didn't do.
So again, I'm stipulating that Brian Koberger pled guilty. I'm stipulating to that as a lawyer would. And I'm not a lawyer, but as that terminology. Do I think this is over? No, I don't think this is over.
Interesting.
I don't think this is over.
Interesting.
Final words. What do you want readers to believe? Obviously not about Koberg, but how major criminal cases should be investigated.
Great question. And let me turn to call around just a second to say what I would most want people to do is read it first, because we've talked in circles around generalities, and I've not built a case that we have very specifically in the book. So that would be the first thing. Once they do that, then I would say, look at these things and say that the criminal justice system is the best in the world. It's not perfect. It's not just the investigators. The investigators give the information to a prosecutor. The prosecutor determines what they could prove. And they always say in the crime business, it's not what you can show, it's what you can prove. Right? They felt they had enough to make a case. Brian Koberger decided it was enough that he was going to get the death penalty,
Well,
and he made that
exactly.
decision. So you'd have to ask Brian, you'd have to ask the prosecutor, ask them those questions. But we as citizens who pay their salaries and we're all inquiring minds and have special backgrounds in various ways, we, in my opinion, have an obligation as a society to say, when something stinks, we should look at it.
Especially when the context is a human being knew death was a possibility.
Exactly.
As soon as that's the premise,
Correct.
that someone was, you're going to be tried for the death, we're going to seek the death penalty. We're in a very peculiar game theory situation.
Yes.
And so everything's got to be bulletproof if someone's in that position, I think.
Yeah, you're taking a chance with your life. So I don't know why anybody did anything in this case. All I'm saying is, one person with the background that I have, for better or worse, I felt compelled to present the evidence as I saw it.
I think a lot of people's knee jerks is like, I would never admit to a crime I didn't commit. Well, I'll tell you, if you came to me and they said, your DNA is on this thing, I don't know how, that's impossible to me. But then they say, the penalty of this is 10 years versus, do you want to go serve 2 days? I'll go serve 2 days in jail before I'll risk my life for 10 years.
It's happening as we sit in this chair right now.
It is.
Cases don't go to trial. Statistically, the number of cases that go to trial and the number of cases that get pled out is astronomically disparate.
It's like single digit. Right?
Having nothing to do with whether you're guilty or not.
That's right. All I'm saying is, we don't know why those things happened. To me, looking at this case, and I spent a year of my life more or less on this thing, to look at this and say, after reading the book and looking at all the evidence that's presented, if you can say at the end of reading this thing that there are major problems with what's gone down.
Yeah, if you feel great about the conclusion.
Did you?
No,
it
doesn't feel good. Yeah, beautifully written. You're a very skilled writer. It is incredible that you have had 5 lives. I'm delighted we got to hear about so much of your background before the book takes place. This has been an absolute delight, Christopher. I hope everyone checks out Broken Plea, the explosive search for truth behind.
Okay, so that's pretty much the end of the interview.
Wow, that is amazing. And how they're going and addressing the issues that we were talking about, and addressing what's going to be on the PCR anyway. But just, if I could say this, 'cause I'm going to be heading out eventually too. Judge Hippler and his role, and then we're going to look at his own conflicts, but just his role. When he basically denied, a motion to suppress was denied, but he also denied a motion to compel, in which Antel was trying to get the actual federal grand jury subpoenas that were used.
Yes.
So that was denied as well, and other federal grand jury. But it involved, if there's a federal grand jury, that means it was impaneled at a federal district court, which requires a crime, a federal crime, not a local crime, to be investigated. So if there was a federal crime, which we don't know about, it could also involve individuals who are not Brian Kohberger, because there were at least 71 federal grand jury subpoenas. That is according to Ashley Jennings, the prosecution team. That's her own statement. 71 grand jury. Federal grand jury subpoenas. They gave the information, but they did not give the actual copies of the federal grand jury subpoenas themselves that would provide the defense team what was the crime they were investigating. What federal crime were they investigating?
Yeah, this is what we've constantly been speaking about. I mean, it could be any crime that they are.
Sure.
Why did how many subpoenas were there?
71.
Wow.
According to the Idaho statesman and Ashley Jennings. Yeah, too bad I don't have it. I would send it to you. I actually have it's in the Idaho statesman. So someone wants to look it up, and I apologize. Maybe I could bring that in and send it to you. Here, let me. But that's one, right? But so we know if Judge Hippler would have ruled in favor of the motion to suppress or to compel, for example, either one of them, the case would have been over. So he couldn't do that. He couldn't exclude, suppress the information, that Ann Taylor was saying, right? Because doing that would have destroyed the case. You don't have probable cause anymore. It's over. Well, yeah, it's over. And if he allowed the motion to compel, it would have showed that the feds actually identified Brian Kohberger and others, but Brian Kohberger at the very least, before the state had probable cause, before the state actually pulled that the trash pull. That trash pull is what gave eventually the probable cause for the state to go to their grand jury and indict Brian Kohberger. So, but if the feds had their fingerprint of BK before that time, the case is over. It's a violation of due process. You have two sovereigns. You can't be if the federal government, the feds, are directing the state of Idaho how to conduct their investigation and who to go after, that would have been shown. So that is the dual sovereign kind of problem. And if the feds had identified BK, which we know they did, the case is over. It's just, you can't do that. The states can't.
I think that was a slip in showing us that they had actually identified him even before he left Washington.
Yes, and that's where Hitler played a very nuanced game. That is only to be considered a tip, right? So don't forget the Joint Task Force members who have to be involved because they're the gatekeepers. They get the tip. It's Brian Kohberger. But the Joint Task Force officer is local law enforcement who is also a federal agent. And when they get information from the FBI, it's their duty to protect the federal agency of that information. They will never provide that background information of who they got it from and how. Right? Maybe they'll tell you who, maybe, but you're never going to tell you the full background of it. Right? And that's why you see the doors shutting.
Is this to protect the parallel proceeding and not giving away the other suspects?
Yes, because by doing so, if you admit, or if the judge allowed that to happen, what the state of Idaho would have done by pressure of the FBI and the DOJ, they would say, dismiss the case, get it over. We're not going to give this information. That's the power of what Ann Taylor was trying to get at. Because once you show who's really behind it, the feds are not going to provide that information under no circumstances. They'll force the state to dismiss the case. Then it is up to the federal government, the FBI and the DOJ, to proceed with federal charges. They could always do that. And we even saw that with Steve G. So that's the importance. What the feds wanted to do was to mask and hide how they get all this information, or how the state of Idaho obtains probable cause. It's all based on the FBI being involved directly and indirectly through Othram, through balance, hiding, concealing the cast raw data, a lot of those cell tower records and the other information. So Balance was withholding 90%, according to CyRay, of materials that he needed in order to properly determine different things, right? And if that was missing, different things being, one, where was Brian Kohberger exactly at different times? Was it his vehicle, etc., the device being used? All of that is due process violation. All of that is parallel proceedings. And that's what Judge Hitler was trying to avoid exposing. That's the only way the state of Idaho could continue the case, is by creating a firewall and not being able to look behind that federal wall. Who, what, and how, what was being done, and when was Brian Kohberger identified. So that's why the tip comes in. But just also, Gabby Vargas, another issue. You have a violation, rules of engagement, very similar to what Whitcomb was talking about with Ruby Ridge. The rules of engagement in the IGG, or getting the familial background, right, in those databases, you have terms of service. That's the standard. If you violate that standard, it's a violation of due process, and it's a second search, an unlawful search. Gabby Vargas brought that up. So you see, everything that he's talking about can be substantiated objectively, and we know how the feds use the terms of service and violating them to get that information. You see Othram being used, same thing, second search. You're amplifying DNA based on an AI algorithm, not been tested, don't even know how it's done. That's a violation of due process. Balance, not providing the underlying information necessary to make determinations, is unreliable. Again, violation of due process. So all of that was being, a firewall was created by Hitler, right? And he said, no, you're not going to look at anything. You're not going to get it. Now, what eventually happened, right, is two things. You had the 68 terabyte data dump right before trial. And when Judge Hitler denied the February 19th orders, you have the involvement of Josh Hurwitz. Josh Hurwitz is very important. He's the former U.S. Attorney General for the state of Idaho. He knows in federal court that you can't dump 68 terabytes of data unindexed, meaning they're just raw pictures. You have to make sense of all that. It is impossible to do that. An impossibility for any attorney or any group of attorneys, unless you hire probably 10,000 people to prepare in less than
impossible.
It's impossible. And that's prejudice. That's prejudice under a chronic standard. That's a U.S. Supreme Court case. You have Strickland, which determines ineffective assistance of counsel. And then you have the chronic standard where an impossibility of being effective creates a legal presumption of prejudice. So that means you automatically, you don't have to show prejudice to BK. It's presumed because you can't be effective. It's an impossibility under the chronic standard. And even Ann Taylor told Hitler that she would be
not with that amount of data. It's impossible.
Right. And so just going back to Hurwitz, under the federal rules, dumping that kind of data on somebody on a defense unindexed is unlawful. You can't do it. That's an immediate violation. But yet he was able to get away with it at the state court level. Also, I would look at it as a baseline issue. If it's unlawful in the federal level, it should also be unlawful at the state level. Okay, that might be a side issue, but ultimately it's ineffective assistance of counsel and how it was brought about. And it's important because then let's go to the plea. The plea, then there's a change of plea that happens right after that data dump. And after Judge Hitler denied postponement of the trial in order to manage all that information and review it. So that was denied. So now you have prejudice being presumed and ineffectiveness by definition. She said it, and she would attest to it. If she said it in court, there's no reason why she wouldn't provide an affidavit for it, right, at the PCR level now. But what is critical? So now you have a change of plea. We know from Steve G. and Thompson. Steve G. saying there were Alford plea negotiations and plea negotiations involving Judge Hitler directly. Okay. Thompson saying that BK is, you can't believe anything he says. He would lie. Right. And it goes to my de facto Alford plea theory. And then you have Judge Hitler, who is now investigating, before he accepts the plea, he is now investigating the leaks investigation, where he's looking at state misconduct, which he represents basically. So he's looking at it. So he's wearing an investigator hat, and he doesn't rule on that, but he's willing to accept the plea, knowing there's a conflict now, that Hitler himself has a conflict, because you can't be investigating misconduct that would affect Brian Kohberger's rights to a jury, a trial, and fundamental fairness, and accept a plea. So he's conflicted. So the whole plea at that time is structurally defective. So I hope I laid out enough facts
Yeah.
and circumstances to everyone to look at how that plea, when you don't allocute, you don't even allocute. There's a reason. Even if the Idaho rules allow non-allocution, the rules require if you don't do it, it has to be corroborated through a PCA, which we know is itself unreliable, or you're going to have some sort of proffer. That didn't happen. I don't, until no one stipulated to any facts I know of, but that would be it. It's defective all around. Knowing that there was no allocution, Brian kept silent. That's a de facto Alford plea intended to violate the very rules of an Alford plea by doing it in such a way. This is what BK is saying. He was tricked. All of these things occurring at one time creates coercion. You're about to go face a trial in which you're going to be shot by a firing squad. A great way to pass, right? So he's looking at all this. So what do? Do you go to trial risking your life? I wouldn't. I would do the same thing that he did. That's just my opinion. I would save my life and fight exactly what happened and bring all these issues that are coming out. And Whitcomb laid it out. I'm glad he laid it out this way. This was a great
He did. He did it.
This is great. This is exactly what we're talking about. I mean,
oh wow, that was actually a lot more interesting than what I anticipated it to be.
Yeah, he brings up Cy Ray. He brings up all the people who are provided, were experts at the trial level, but have also come out publicly. Those public statements can be then turned into affidavits and used, whether it's Brian Koberger directly or using those individuals to get their statements. They could be subpoenaed as witnesses. They don't have to be, but see, you could subpoena somebody who's an expert, but they're not been retained as an expert. So for example, if I had a case and someone commented on the case and they're within the subpoena power, compelling them to show up either at trial or as a witness. If they make comments like Cy Ray, let's say a FBI cast had presented some information that was wrong, and he happened to look at my case and comment on it, you could subpoena them to show up and testify at a deposition or at trial, at an evidentiary hearing.
Would Whitcomb be subpoenaed to testify as well?
If he doesn't get an affidavit, my belief is he'll be subpoenaed. That's you get around all this, finding out. We talked about it before, why the statesman was looking at the expenses and costs to be publicly available. But this is a way of hiding it, for sure. Because now I'm looking at the tea leaves. I'm telling you what I see. I'm not saying I know 100%. I'm not saying that, but I believe these statements that are coming out, they are setting up their testimony for an evidentiary hearing or affidavit, however it comes about. Doesn't matter. They're making these public statements. So they can be subpoenaed. They're not being retained. They don't have to be paid, but they could be paid because of their time for the testimony. Not as an expert. They become an expert because of their qualifications. So they're now testifying in public based on what they know, and they're making public statements. So this becomes a secondary source of using them as witnesses who are not retained as experts. So if they're subpoenaed, just like, let's say you were in a, give you a whole other example a little bit. If you're involved in a car accident, right, and you have medical damages, you have medical injuries, and there's a dispute about your injuries, right, and your treating physician who treated you, right, is a medical doctor. Do you retain that person? No, you don't have to. You just you subpoena them to show up at trial to testify to your injuries. Now, they're also a physician. They're also an expert in treating those injuries, right? I'm assuming that you're going to a qualified doctor. But that comes out. You pay them for their time because they're professionals and they should be paid for their time. They could also waive that. but they're not there under a retained expert. They're there as a fact witness. And you could be a hybrid. You could be both an expert and a fact witness. That is exactly what Whitcomb is. That is exactly what Cy-Ray is. That is exactly what Brent Turvey is. They're both qualified experts, but they're also fact witnesses to the due process violations that we're discussing, right? They happen to be retained experts at the trial level, but they're no longer retained as experts. So they're just basically Joe Schmo on the street who happen to have qualifications that you could use for your PCR evidence to support your PCR claims. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. Wow. Jeez.
So this is where you're getting into some high technical stuff of using and how to use witnesses. And a lot of people may not understand that. Well, he was an expert person before, and he's saying stuff that is outside the scope of his expertise. Well, he's not retained counsel, retained expert anymore. He's entitled to give his opinions, and you could actually subpoena him for those opinions as a fact witness and as an expert. Creates a hybrid situation where and I have to look at the rules. There's certain rules in different jurisdictions that regarding hybrid witnesses, but that's what you're seeing. You're seeing individuals now who are experts below trial level, who are now not retained, but can be used as witnesses in a hybrid setting that satisfies a hybrid setting at trial, at an evidentiary hearing, in an affidavit, but at an evidentiary hearing, they could just be subpoenaed to show up, and we know what they're going to say because it's in their books. They've testified. They made public statements about it. So that's the evidence that I see forthcoming. All that comes at an evidentiary hearing. And the federal, the state of Idaho prosecution is going to see that they're not retained. But that's why they're scrambling. They're trying to find out who BK has retained. Right? And they're finding out, and that door's closed. Now you're seeing the gamesmanship. You're seeing this high level of lawyering. That's what I could be wrong. Not that I know anything.
Yeah, wow. That is very interesting, Big Amish. Jeez.
Yeah. Sorry. And
no,
I gotta
no,
go.
No.
I gotta leave you with that.
That's fascinating. Thank you for that. Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see who they bring in now.
Yeah, but I just want to point out, BK can use his attorney and BK. But I don't know ultimately if this attorney is going to actually be representing BK. BK might have issues with it, which is a whole other issue. But how Turvey, Cy-Ray, Whitcomb, Steve G, Thompson could all of the public statements can be used again support PCR relief. And the first PCR relief we're talking about is the recusal of Judge Hippler, right? That could be number one. And if you get an evidentiary hearing, or even if you don't, at an evidentiary hearing, you simply subpoena these individuals to show up. And I'm talking about mainly Turvey, Cy-Ray, and Whitcomb, because they're both fact witnesses. They've reviewed the evidence and have given opinions in their books and publicly since the plea. That puts you in a whole different setting. They can be subpoenaed. They're no longer retained expert witnesses. So they can have whatever biases they want and actually supports BK. Imagine using Cy-Ray, just to show this. Imagine using Cy-Ray under my situation, my scenario, my hypothesis. Yeah. And you use someone like Cy-Ray who says he's guilty. Well, guilt has nothing to do with the PCR. It actually helps BK. Because what Cy-Ray has said, that there was withheld evidence from mouth, and there were numerous flaws through that whole process of the FBI cast. Even Whitcomb is bringing that up. So this is not by coincidence. This is a plan. 99.999%. This is exactly how it's going to go down. They're going to be subpoenaed to appear at an evidentiary hearing. Or
will we get to see this evidentiary hearing?
Well, that's where so that's where the sealing comes into play, the second part of the sealing. And it's going to be a lot more difficult because you have these outspoken, now they're third parties, right? They're basically, you could argue, okay, they were retained once. Okay, you could get into a couple of questions on bias and their motivation, but they're not being paid under the scenario argument, and they haven't been paid. Paying them for their time to show up at an evidentiary hearing is totally different. You're just going to come up and tell us what you know, and based on your book that you put out and public statements that you made. How do you find the problems as a due process violation? What errors have you seen from the FBI, the judge? That's what's going on. And that's totally different. They use where they have.
Oh, you're cutting up. You're cutting up there. Sorry, you were cutting out there a little bit.
Qualifications. And so they're fact witnesses, but also now they're qualified expert, that hybrid status. But they can talk about the different, they're qualified. They could talk about different areas. And they use their qualifications, their knowledge and expertise to provide that. It'll be interesting because on cross-examination, as if the prosecution, the state, it's a silly saying prosecution because it'll feel like that. If they're being questioned, it's going to open the door because of these issues. These public statements are going to be introduced in some fashion, in my opinion, into the PCR. Whether it's at an hearing, somehow this is coming in, and ultimately there will be an evidentiary hearing. That question becomes how they limit that testimony. Do not retain experts anymore, and they already provide public statements. So the public statements can't be viewed in a vacuum. Right, and it's just upon evidence that's over, some of it's still sealed, a lot of it's still sealed, and a lot of it's not even been reviewed. Yeah, so you see the due process violation. That's why I feel very strongly how the recusal of Hitler, number one, and two, that ultimately doesn't have to be at the state level of Idaho, the PCR level, because my opinion is they're going to try and shut as much as they can. But as long as this thing gets reviewed at the federal habeas level, and that's what you're going to see the real fairness about, in my opinion, unless Judge Hitler falls on his sword, which he has a duty to, because it's an obvious conflict that he had during the plea, accepting the plea while investigating the least investigation creates an unwaverable conflict that mandates that he steps down stuff. But is he man enough and fair enough to do that? That's what we'll see. So everyone,
yes, so it's gonna be pretty interesting to see how this plays out now.
Yeah. So just looking at, there's a lot to unpack from that. Hopefully I'll do it again, but certainly I'm going to address these issues that we just discussed. Very powerful and how they impact the PCR.
We have, we probably have another video that we'll go over next week again. There's always more.
Oh, yeah, there's always more. And I'm sorry, someone.
Big Amish, I think your audio is messing around.
Oh, sorry about that. I apologize. Hopefully everyone, is this better?
Yeah, it seems a little better. Sorry about that. Yeah, no, it seems better. It does seem better.
Well, hopefully what I said before was clear. Hopefully
it cut out at points, but I think if anybody wants you to turn on captions, it should pick it up. It should pick it up.
Okay, sorry about that. I
was trying to adjust it from my side, but it wouldn't. I thought it was my internet at first.
Yeah, no, and I apologize because I do have to.
No. We'll definitely catch up again. Thank you so much, Big Amish.
Thank you. Thank you for playing and thank you for your insight. Thank everyone in the chat. Everyone. Alicia, Linda, Jethro.
Wow, let's see how
Dolo, everyone who I miss and miss.
Love and Other Habits, Jethro, Timu, thank you.
Timo
Carrie.
especially, yes. She's my biggest advocate. Love all of you.
We're all learning from you. We love having you, Jethro, Jeff, Alicia. If I missed your name, then not personal. Mrs. Pottage, don't worry, we were also late starting. Don't stress. Carrie, Linda, thank you to all of you. I really appreciate it. We won't do a live tomorrow, but we'll catch up next week. It's a holiday here on Monday, so we'll probably see how next week plays out.
Enjoy your day then. Enjoy your weekend.
Enjoy your day. Thank you so much, Big Amish.
Bye-bye. Yep.
Bye. Thank you. Oh, sorry about that, guys. I think Big Amish's audio might have cut out there. It could have been a simple connection problem. So I don't know if you guys could hear him at all. Misleading evidence, Alicia. Sorry. Were you on what is the guy's channel's name? Is he Murder Metal Mayhem? I don't know if you're still here. But yeah, sorry about that. I was trying to hear what Big Amish was saying, but then it kept cutting out. So there was another interview, but I'm not going to. Tim, thank you so much for being here. There was another interview with Brian Enton, and there's a lot of contradictions in that, but I'm not going to play that one now. I think I'm going to save it for next week, and we can go over it. Do any of you have any questions or thoughts on this interview that you want to bring up before I head out? I'll wait a few seconds, see if anybody types in the chat. Oh yes, Linda, don't forget, once you do kind of muted mails for a little bit, especially over the weekend, I do mute them, but I will get back to you. I'll check periodically and see what has come up. I think it is going to be very interesting to see how this plays out with all these witnesses contradicting one another now. Oh, yes. I should actually name my channel Wendy's or something, because I see there is somebody else who's got a similar name to my channel. So it's hard to tell people where to find my channel. I don't have a name that's easy to search, I guess. If you think of any names, let me know. But otherwise, okay, yes, it is almost 9:15 here. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. And then I will see you probably next week. I'll arrange with Big Amish and we'll see how we're going to proceed. Thank you, everyone. Oh, let's see. What was that? Oh, sorry. Have a good night. I will chat with you all soon.